You ready to talk about this dread come true?
Oh, it's so dreadfully wonderful. That sounded way less cool than what you just said.
So thanks everyone for listening to our Metroid Dread episode. We'll see you next time on Tradin Faves. Wait, how did we get to the end already? Like, we just started. Oh my gosh, is Samus sequence breaking again? There she is! Samus! 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 Samus, don't slide jump there. She's clipping through the floor. Like, Samus! She already beat Tradin Faves again. That's twice. Samus, please come back. Okay, can you do 100% run now? We have a show to do. Okay, thanks. All right. Speedrunners. Welcome back to Tradin Faves.
I can, in my mind, just see Samus like the Super Metroid like arm pumping as you were just narrating that whole thing. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's also perfect because this is our third Metroid episode in this podcast.
For real.
Oh, I love Metroid.
Oh, Metroid Dread is... Oh, we got so much to talk about.
You know what we don't need to talk about? Our history. Go watch the other episodes.
Yeah, for more general info about our history with the Metroid series, you can watch our first two episodes of the podcast are Super Metroid and Fusion.
I love that, like, right now, more than half of this series has just been Metroid.
That's why we started this series. I know, so I can show you the Metroids. It's so amazing that
it will inevitably equalize itself out, but like
eventually Tradin Faves is just gonna get buried into the ground with Sonic content. But
eventually, but.
Oh my gosh, I just realized, like, Sonic Frontiers is going to come out while we have our podcast.
Oh, you better believe
we can do an episode on that. That's exciting.
You better believe. I'm gonna refrain from talking about Sonic because I really want to talk about this game.
Okay, there's our Sonic mention.
I know. I believe I have one somewhere in my notes. I could, if I'm remembering.
Okay.
Correctly, but I could be wrong.
Either way.
Look. Sonic is definitely my boy, but like Samus is now my girl. Like,
that's good. As it should be.
I love that when we started this podcast, I'm just like, oh yeah, like Metroid, it looks cool. I'd like to know more. Now I'm like to the point where I'm like, this is one of my all-time favorite franchises.
I know. It's amazing because like starting out, like, I don't freaking care about no Metroid nothing. Like, I was just like, oh, Samus, she's in Smash Bros. And just, like, over time, I have morphed into this Metroid-loving gremlin.
I know. Well, and to, like, cap this journey off with Dread. And how...
The most sublime thing about this whole thing is that we were just like, oh, you gotta, like, check out all these Metroid games. And as we were in the process of doing that, they announced Dread.
Yeah. Well, because I believe the big thing for me was that like really pushed me over the edge where I was like, we got to make this podcast, was I think Dread got announced. And I was like, I really want to play that.
Uh-huh. But you're like, I gotta see the other Metroids so I can enjoy this one.
We gotta go to the others first.
Yep. So I guess the first thing we'll talk about then, since we're technically still doing history, even though we said we wouldn't. I mean, okay, let's start with a general spoiler warning. We'll put more specific, like, spoiler notices later on in the thing. We're gonna start with general talk about the game before we get into spoiler stuff. There's not as much of a storyline with this one, but Just know that if you want
Yeah.
to avoid hearing anything about the spoilers, like after hearing us talk about this game, you can use the timestamps in the description, and that'll let you skip. Because again, this one's not too story heavy, so like,
Yeah, the experience is more like you exploring
Uh-huh.
the game and stuff. And
Yeah.
so,
but
yeah.
definitely like the biggest plot moments, we'll put some spoiler warnings up and let you skip past them with the timestamps and what have you. But with that, let's dive into first impressions. And unlike pretty much everything else we've played so far with first impressions, our first impressions of the game came from a trailer.
I know, that's super weird.
This is a new game. This is something modern.
Yeah, this isn't our old-timey games. This
I
is
say, back in the day, Samus could only aim in 3 directions: left, right, and up.
Oh my gosh. No, first impressions, this game is gorgeous. It is good. You know, I've been sitting here deliberating over it this whole time. I think this is my favorite entry in the whole franchise.
That we're talking about first impressions.
I know, I know. But like right from the get-go, everything about this game just hooked me. I was just pulled right in, and I was just like, again, this is the thing that pushed me over the edge. I was like, hey, let's do this podcast.
Right. This was your incentive for hopping into the series.
Yeah, like, you know, like I mentioned in the last episode, I had that Metroid itch that I needed to scratch, and then like I saw this trailer, and I was like, I want to play this. I really want to play this. I need to get indoctrinated in Metroid.
Uh-huh. It's like that was always the case for me when like Metroid trailers would come out. I'd see them and be like, I don't want to be the guy sitting on the sidelines every time a new Metroid comes out and going, good for you guys. Like, I want to get as excited for this stuff as everyone else. And so I finally got that experience. I mean, first I got that experience with like Ridley and Smash. But then even after that, like just seeing that trailer, the fact that they did like the slow text crawl just like Super Metroid where it says Metroid 5.
Mm-hmm.
And just like all the subtle ways that like the trailer builds everything up. And that was like, I'll be honest, I was still into Metroid and I'd played various Metroid games up to that point, but I didn't actually know about like the name Metroid Dread and the significance behind it. So I just saw that and I was like, yo, sequel to Fusion.
Man. But we hadn't played Fusion yet at that point.
No,
either.
I hadn't. I mean, I watched Steven play it.
Okay.
So I had seen some things about Fusion and just had like a general sense of what it's like.
Yeah, I saw like the whole aesthetic, and again, Metroid has such a good aesthetic, and I saw it and I was like, I want to play this. Like, this looks fun. It looks gorgeous. I want to play. Not to mention, like, again, because what a lot of people talk about Metroid is like the first person, the Prime games, which we still need to do those at some point.
That'll be. I think once we see something of Prime 4, that'll probably, much like with Dread, like that'll be the incentive for getting on the Prime games.
Yeah, we gotta after this take a little break from Metroid, just to diversify the palette. But like, you know, and so seeing that it was like a side-scrolling platformer, and I was like, ooh, this looks really fun. And then just like the E.M.M.I. Oh, the E.M.M.I. in the trailer was so cool. I'm like, this is creepy. This is awesome.
It was so, like, just seeing the E.M.M.I. and the concept of, like, Samus having to, like, run and hide, and knowing a little bit about, like, the SAX and how that worked. Like, I just saw that and I was like, it's like the SAX, but it's the whole game.
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
I will say, first impression-wise, I wasn't the biggest fan of Samus's current suit design. but it grew on me so hard over time. Like at first I was like, all right, the red, white, and blue. This is America, Samus.
America.
Like I guess Japan really knows that she's more popular in the West. Um, but then like it grew on me, and I was like, no, this is a really cool suit. Like
I don't know if I'd even say that Samus is more popular in the West anymore.
I mean, yeah, no,
like,
now she's just popular.
Metroid just couldn't get off the ground, and now it's like, it's here, it's on the Switch, it's on a console everyone owns.
For Game of the Year!
And it won Best Action Game as well, which is...
good.
Do you know how much crud it had to fight against? Like,
I know!
Oh,
I know! Man. Oh, this... Good game.
Yeah. I guess the other thing with the trailers that was kind of interesting, like, Nintendo was pushing this game. Every single direct they had, we got an update on Dread, and then, like, in between directs, we got, like, 2 or 3 trailers. Like, they were pushing this one. I was like, stop spoiling it. I don't want to know anything about... Yeah. I don't want to know anything about the game. I just want to go in and have a good time.
It was interesting, too, because, like, Metroid had nothing for years, and then we got the remake, Samus Returns.
Yeah,
and like to my knowledge, it did well, but like that was before I really got into Metroid, like, and so I didn't know how well it did, and so I was like, okay, well, we got a Metroid game, and Prime 4 is supposedly in development hell.
Right. And I guess that was the other thing going into this that was kind of relevant for me. So, when I saw the announcement, I was looking at everything. The big question on my mind was this developed by Mercury Steam, who were the ones that did Samus Returns? And I found out it was. And this was something that was kind of interesting to me. And I think I've expressed this opinion before. But either way, I don't mean to step on the cornflakes of any diehard Metroid fans. I just feel like Samus Returns wasn't for me. And I do wonder, now that I've played Dread, if I would like Samus Returns more or less. Like, more because I appreciate Mercury Steam's style a bit better, or less because Dread is just Samus Returns, but better.
That's really what it was.
But, like, I went into this one being like, oh, Samus Returns was fine, but not exactly what I was looking for. It did a lot of the stuff that I kind of didn't want Metroid to do, like nostalgia pandering. Oh, it's Ridley again, even though he wasn't in the game this is a remake of. Oh, remember all this music from Super Metroid? And I'm like, just remake Super Metroid then. Like, and there was the counter, the melee counter thing. Yeah, we'll get more into my thoughts on how that all works out in Dread as we go on. But like, just seeing that they were behind this one, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this one. I don't know. Day one purchase, but I don't know. I was way too curious.
Yeah.
But yeah, so unlike the standard Metroid fan, I went into this one extremely, like, skeptical, but figuring I would at least get, like, fusion level of enjoyment.
Yeah. So I just went in and I was like, it's a new Metroid game. Yeah. I have been thoroughly enjoying these. Yeah. This is gonna be a fun one.
Mm-hmm. So you would also say this is the first one that you beat, right?
No, because Fusion. I played.
Oh, that's true. You played Fusion on your own. I forgot about that.
Yeah, which was a very helpful precursor to this. Yeah, because after playing through, going through Super with you, and then playing through all of Fusion, very much prepped me so that I had the mindset of how to play this type of game. The exploration and the slow, like, power scaling of, like, you getting stronger.
Yeah, definitely, because that's something that's still on my mind. I think we do have a viewer or two that is not, like, keeping up with Metroid. that
Mm.
like might be interested in this one. So like I am curious to see how somebody who is not a Metroid fan feels about this game.
Yeah.
Cause like I've seen it in YouTube comments and stuff. People have gotten into Metroid because of this game and go like digging back through the history.
You go backwards from there. Which, to be fair, like this game does a good job of getting you up to speed on like, hey,
Yeah.
here's what happened. And I know Nintendo, that I went back and looked at it after the fact because I was still playing through Fusion at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But they put out like a, hey, here's the history of Metroid. Like here's Metroids 1 through 4, and then
Mm-hmm.
Dread's coming.
Yep.
Uh, it was super good, super concise.
Yeah. Like I feel like the intro just kind of as like a general video game standard, like the text at the beginning is maybe a little too long. But like if you don't know anything about Metroid, like that is going to be the best way to help you figure out what's going on even.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, I again, having gone through a bunch of these games now, this like it's almost you come to expect it. Like Samus gives her recap monologue, catching you up to speed. Not to mention, for a lot of people, it's been how many years? Like, what was it, 19?
Yeah, 19 in total. Like the game was locked in its vicious development cycle for 15, but like it's been 19 years since like the previous installment of the series. So,
Yeah, and so like a bit of a refresher, very helpful.
yeah,
It's
definitely.
gosh, seeing those scenes just animated at the beginning, like
Mhm.
of like the X-Parasites from Fusion. I'm just like, oh, this is cool. I love this.
Yep. We're already getting into like the
I
opening and the
know.
story. First,
Yeah, yeah.
let's talk about that presentation. How do you feel about
Oh,
them graphics and music?
dude, this game is so pretty.
It's
Um,
visually, it's mind blowing that a Metroid game looks like this.
it's I kept getting lost in the world because of just how like gorgeous it looks. Um, I have a very specific example, uh, and I meant to go look for it before we started recording. I didn't. I couldn't find it. I don't remember what part of the game it is, but like how you take the transits
Mm-hmm.
to like the different areas. You get off the train and it's like storming and there's like waves and it's like a little like port. And just like getting off of that train and just seeing that like took my breath away. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this game is so pretty. Like that moment was just burned into my memory as like, this is a gorgeous game.
Yeah, for real.
And like,
There's so much like attention to detail in the visuals of this game. Like I don't know, when it first came out, the crowd of the hate mobs of Twitter who don't know anything and decide to just hate a thing, we're all like, it's a 2D game, therefore it's not worth $60. um,
ah,
and like those guys suck first of all because they
I
they pay $60 for the yearly Call of Duties and FIFAs and whatever. Like those
okay.
those people are gonna be those people, and we can't really do anything to change them. But visually, and it's not just like that, like, oh, the graphics are good, it's a nice looking game. No, there's like attention to detail. There's so many like animations that have context to them. They literally, so the loading screens are pre-rendered. So they literally made a separate animation for each like suit upgrade for each of the loading screens
Yeah,
because they were
even
because it's so good.
yeah, I want to say I was looking into I was doing a bit of digging on like the history of this because I was like, okay, I need to know more about Dread because everyone flipped out way harder than I did when
Yeah.
this got announced, and then I found out about its whole development cycle. But apparently, like the devs, like even did animations for like if you play through the game normally, uh, you shouldn't see an animation with this suit. You'd have the upgraded suit by that time.
Mm-hmm.
But they knew that people would sequence break and speed run this game, and so they animated like everything with each set of suit, like each of the different suits that you get, knowing that they're like, somebody's gonna do it. We're just gonna prep the game so that it can handle that.
Yep.
Which, again, it's all these like little things in there that like don't even need to be in there, but they're such nice details.
Mm-hmm. A couple of them that I'm thinking of, like in general, just the animation of Samus
Mm-hmm.
is like, it's so smooth, it's so perfect. They have separate like sets of physics for each of the limbs, so that way she can like move and aim, but then her feet can be doing context sensitive stuff. There's literally one. So people were freaking out when they first saw this in the trailer, how when you get close to a wall, Samus puts her hand up against it. I learned the rabbit hole goes deeper with that. When you get to a wall where there's like a hole that you can morph ball through, when you do not have the morph ball, she puts her hand above the hole, like against the wall. But when you have the morph ball, she actually puts it below, so it's like she's supporting herself as she climbs into the hole and goes into the morph ball.
Like, I did actually know about that
so
one.
So whether or not you have a power-up affects the animations of interacting with the environment. Like, this is some Naughty Dog level, like, context-sensitive animation.
I know, it's...
Oh. There's one more that I wanted to talk about that was really freaking cool. So in the first area of the game, Ataria, like, right where you first spawn to start the game, there's this, like, sort of empty, like, landscape with sort of a pit in the background. And as you go through the thing, you get to the E.M.M.I room, which is right above that room. And there's a puzzle where you stand on a switch and it, like, pours water out and, like, raises a platform.
Mm-hmm.
When you go back to that first area after doing that, the water drains through and there's, like, a lake.
Really?
Yeah, and you can see like pools of water like dripping down like into the like pouring into there and filling the water.
See, I remember that puzzle, but I didn't go back to that room, and so I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it's freaking nuts. And then it gets even crazier. Like, I'm not finished yet.
Oh no.
If you sequence break past that part and then backtrack, the water isn't there because you didn't do that. Like, it's nuts.
There's so many little details in this game that are so good.
There's so much crud like that. The entire game is like that. There's stuff even like if you're running and then you get to a ledge and then stop, Samus will kind of like lean forward from the momentum and then move her feet and like readjust so she regains her balance so she doesn't fall off the ledge. It's just like, oh, who thought of this? It's amazing. And it's like just the way that Samus moves, everything is super fluid, and there's so much like during cutscenes, like the body language is so expressive.
Oh, dude.
It's mind-blowing.
And not to mention, like, the other thing, too, I guess kind of talking about the gameplay a little bit, there's that seamless transition from, like, a cutscene to gameplay. It flows flawlessly.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it so much. Because it keeps you in the moment.
It's like you almost have to look at a cutscene and be like, is this a cutscene or am I about to do like a counter sequence? Like,
yeah. And then the music, I will say once again, there's a lot of ambience, and so like I lose track of a lot of the music, but when it's there, like it is so good. It
Mm-hmm.
is so good. They really showed some love to Super Metroid, which I was a
Uh-huh.
big fan of.
Yeah, we got a few Super Metroid remixes in there, which is cool. Now it's interesting, having looked around and heard like the community talk about this. Some people consider this to be the weakest soundtrack in the entire Metroid series,
Huh.
which is a pretty interesting one. And for me, on my first playthrough of the game, I didn't really notice anything about the music. Like, nothing stood out to me except for the Super Metroid remixes, because I heard those and I was like, that's a Super Metroid remix. Um, so I was originally inclined to agree with people that, like, this was a weaker soundtrack. Um, but there are two things about this that kind of changed my mind. The first one is Other M soundtrack. And by that I mean there's hardly a soundtrack to that game. Like, I don't know. You can still kind of make an argument that like Other M does like the big orchestral pieces for like
Hmm.
boss fights, but like there's no music when you're exploring areas at all. Like you talk about like the ambiance or whatever, just like the various like noises or whatever in Dread, like the tunes do have melodies. They are more
They do.
ambient, whereas like in Other M, there's just nothing. Like it's the sound of like wind or machines with no
Hmm.
musical anything to it. And so I'm kind of like I don't know. If you don't like the soundtrack to Dread, like it just isn't a like fit to your tastes, that's perfectly understandable. I think that's a fine opinion to have, and especially when a game like Super Metroid exists and has like every soundtrack is a bop or is like creepy and interesting. Like that's fair, but I don't know. I think if you like Other M soundtrack more, I think you're crazy.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say I wanted to add I wanted to agree with you
Mm-hmm.
about the music because when I was doing the working on the artwork uh, for this episode, I was like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
want to listen to the Metroid Dread soundtrack, and so I found it. I put it on. I just let it play through, and like not playing the game, like I didn't realize like how much it sucks me into the moment. I was like, oh no, like there's actual melodies here in like some of these areas, and I would like
Mm-hmm.
especially the one that really stands out to me is the Emmy room.
Yeah.
Like, man, that sets the tone uh,
I think
for what you're about to do.
the big thing is like the music for when the Emmy is chasing you is like the new version of the Guardians from Breath of the Wild. Because
Yes.
everybody referred to the Breath of the Wild one as like the anxiety theme song. Um, I feel like it's that tenfold
Oh yeah.
with the Emmys.
Yeah. Especially like it's anxiety when they haven't found you, and then when they have, and the music kicks in, like it kicks
Uh-huh.
up, and you're like running from them. Oh man.
Yeah. So that was definitely, I'd say, like re-listening through the soundtrack, not playing the game. I found quite a few tracks that I really do appreciate, and so I'm kind of like, no, I do think this is a good soundtrack. I get what people are
Mhm.
saying with like, it's not like Legend of Zelda level like strong pronounced melodies, booming brass,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. And maybe it's just because like we haven't really had a proper Metroid game since Other M, which did have the big orchestral pieces every now and then. Like that kind of maybe more in people's minds of like what Metroid music sounds like. So I don't know. I get it, but like there's so many good tracks. When we get to our favorites section and we talk about the music, like I do have a specifically favorite track, but I do want to like mention a couple of songs from the
Yeah.
soundtrack so that way people are not just like, "Oh, this is one track you like out of a soundtrack that's garbage." It's like, "No, there's some good stuff here that like gets overlooked."
Yeah, there definitely was. And again, like I said, when I was listening through the soundtrack while drawing, I was like, "Oh shoot, like there's some real bops in here.
Uh-huh.
Like there's some good stuff."
There definitely is. Um
Um
in general, just like sound design, sound effects, all
Oh,
chef's kiss, extremely good.
absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
monster roars, laser blast sounds, metallic like machinery sounds. Like it's
Uh-huh.
you couldn't ask for a better sounding game.
Well,
It's
even like just little like audio cues so that you know what's going on. Like the sound effect when there's something that you can counter, or like the sound effects that the Emmys make as they're crawling around and stuff. Like
mm-hmm.
it's good stuff. I love
Slight
it.
tangent, but it was funny. The whole thing about the little like star that indicates you can counter something. Um, it's extremely similar to the melee attacks from the bosses in Fury. How they get the little like
Oh.
white sparkle and it plays the sound that's like I'm gonna punch you, and you that's how you know to like try and parry. So like I saw that and I was like, yeah, I'm right at
Yeah.
home here.
Yeah, well, the parry mechanic was really
hmm
I enjoyed it so much.
Well, I guess with that, do you wanna get talking about the gameplay?
Yeah. Honestly, I mostly have really good things to say with like one or two very tiny complaints.
hmm
Like they're very very minor complaints that like do not detract from the overall experience.
Right.
Uh the big one for me was like some of the button placement was just kind of weird. Because this
Yeah.
game, you get so many power ups and it utilizes every single button on the controller.
You're using like all the different R things and
Yeah,
LRs and like your
like
face buttons and
holding buttons down, using and so like the one for me that I wasn't super crazy about was the speed booster.
oh yeah.
How like you had to click the stick
You
in.
click the stick in to do it.
Um, and that was super weird for me for like a good chunk of the game, and then like towards like the very end of it, it clicked for me and I got it.
Okay, yeah.
But it was very like uncomfortable to use.
Yeah, I get that. It's because it's kind of like the button economy is already very
Yeah,
saturated.
it's pushing it a bit, and so I was kind of just like, oh man, like we couldn't just run and have it activate. We had to like click in this thing. But like once I got it, then I just got used to it, and then I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Part of the issue too is that when I play platformers, I like to use the D-pad and not the control
Uh
stick.
huh.
I don't know why. I feel like I'm a little more in control with my button pushes than I am with like moving the stick.
Right. Well,
The
and part of
Joy-Con,
that is that you have like a very rigid like I am only pushing left, not up and left, not down and left. I am only pushing left when you
yeah,
do something with the D-pad. Yeah, this one was interesting too because like there was I don't remember too much about my experience with Samus Returns, but it was kind of like that where I was like, "Ew, circle pad for moving." Like I get that I have to aim, but like I want to move with the D-pad cuz it's
yeah.
2D Metroid.
Well, and that was a problem that just I personally encountered was that like
Uh-huh.
I would use the stop and aim feature a lot.
Right,
Uh,
definitely.
because then I felt a little more in control instead of like trying to strafe and shoot. But like at the same
Right.
time, I got used to it.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely. Cuz I would say like I hardly ever move while shooting. I pretty much always use the free aim when I want to hit something. And then like only if I ever need to make like a quick split second move and there's not enough time to stop and aim, like then I would like run and gun. But for the most part, yeah, I definitely just stop and free aim. And it honestly feels very natural to just like move around Samus with a control stick. I was really like not prepared. I think my experience was because I played Samus Returns first, and
yeah.
this is just a lot smoother than that. So like for me, just the schmovement. The schmovement is
The
here. The
movement.
I remember that was like the other thing. Like I was watching the trailers and I was like, oh, they brought back the melee counter. I didn't freaking like that move. And then I saw Samus do the little like Mega Man slide, and I was like, oh, but they have a Mega Man slide. Like
Yeah.
every 2D game should have a Mega Man slide as a
And I
mechanic.
love I love how the slide pairs with things like the morph ball. Just like the way Samus moves is so quick and responsive and just good.
It's
And
extremely good.
and especially like, going back to the speed booster, once I figured it out, I did some of like the speed booster puzzles,
Oh
where
yeah.
you're like, there's some very complicated ones. I didn't get all of them. I did not 100% this game because some of those were really tough.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah, it was tough.
but like when you're moving and you get some of those, the timing just right, like it feels so good.
This is I gotta say, this is probably the most like satisfying that the speed booster's ever been in the series.
Yeah.
Like, and it's the fact that you can do stuff. You can use the shine spark while in morph ball,
Yeah.
which is freaking great. You can do it and at any angle. Before you couldn't do it downwards. Now you can. Like, there's just so much freedom with it.
You can shine spark and then store that, like you can go back to just the speed boost run, like store it and then shine spark again.
Well, it's like you can like get the speed boost, store the shine spark, and if you shine spark into a ramp, you go back into the normal speed boost, and then you can store it a second time. And so it leads to all these crazy gaps where you're like running across like half the map trying to save your speed boost so you can like ram into a boss and kill it in one hit or something. Like,
yeah. Well, and then that was the other thing too about it that like led to some interesting things because like I said, I was trying to do some of the speed booster puzzles. And I wasn't sure how to do it, so I looked it up, and all of a sudden I see like multiple videos showing how to do it, but they're all doing different things because there's so many different ways you can move and utilize it. I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah, definitely. I will also say before we leave the topic of the speed booster, I think the reason why clicking in the stick to use it came more naturally to me, hilariously enough, was because in Uncharted, the way that you run is by clicking in the stick before you like move in a direction. So I guess I kind of just had that innate, like, oh yeah, click in the stick and then move.
And part of it too is that I'd never played any kind of a game that utilized that button. But like, there's so many buttons and they all do different things.
Maybe like at most Kingdom Hearts, like,
yeah,
if even that.
Like
all the power ups they added in general are just
power ups are so good in this game.
They're all great.
But I had one other complaint, and that was filling in the mini map. Like filling in the map.
Oh yeah,
was like, because in past games, because it's like the grid system. You walk into a room and then that whole room fills up.
It's like you've been in this room.
Here it's like tiny little squares.
Here it's like the part of like the square or the screen around you where
is the
you've
part
walked.
That it fills it. And so like it got to a point where like I'd get to a room and I'm just like jumping up and down in place instead of like going on because I'm like, I want to fill this all in.
Yeah, it's a bit of an OCD killer for sure.
So then I'm like space jumping and flash shifting all over the map. And especially when like I'm sitting there and I'm exploring and I'm like, okay, where haven't I explored? Oh, there's a tiny part of the map that's not colored in. Like, I wonder if there's like a secret door there or something. And then I go down and it was a corner of the wall. You just didn't fill that in.
Yeah.
And so like I said, very, very minor nitpicks. And then like one more that I'll talk about when we talk about the story. But otherwise, like, this game controls so well.
Yeah. And with the map thing, like, I had a bit of that at the start too, where it was like at first it was just like the OCD of filling everything in, and then there was when I didn't fill stuff in, I'd be like, wait, is there a way to progress there? Like, because I don't have the map, so I don't know. Having the map for an area definitely helps with that because you can at least
It
see, oh,
definitely
this
does.
is how big the room is, and this is where the doors are. um,
Yeah.
did you know that there's a speedrunning category for 100% filled map?
Oh, oh, I don't want to know about that.
It looks so stupid because you go into like the train rooms and you have to like
Oh, the train
shine
rooms are
spark
so
across.
big.
It's
They're
so
so
stupid.
big.
Whoever thought of that was just like, I want to be the number one best in a speedrunning category. No one else is gonna play.
Yeah, that you can keep that title. You can hold on to that trophy forever,
No one will
Mister.
take my crown if it's a stinky crown.
If it's made of tin foil and
Uh
bottle
huh.
caps.
I will say regularly, like speedrunning, or not even speedrunning, but just trying to play the game fast to get like the unlockables. Um, it'll cure you of that. You will be like, I don't
Oh
have
yeah,
time to fill out the map. I just gotta go.
yeah. I did not speedrun this game. Most
That's
like
fair.
my final time was like 16 hours, and I think a lot of that was spent like I had to pause the game and then watch my
Hmm.
son
Well, to
and
be
then pick
fair,
it back
your
up.
timer actually doesn't count up while you're
Oh,
paused.
I'm just bad.
No, I wouldn't say because here's the thing: like you had to like you have plenty of parental responsibilities to distract you. Um, I have none of that, and it took me 15 hours. So
So what you're saying is I'm excused for that 1 hour.
yeah, 1 hour of taking care of your baby is a free pass. Other than that, you're a fake Metroid fan.
Oh man. But yeah,
Uh,
I'm trying to think if we've missed anything else as far as like presentation and
let me think. In general, like we'll talk about specific boss fights, but in general, the bosses are solid, dude. Like these are the best boss fights the series has ever had.
yeah.
Honestly.
Well, and it's when you die on a boss fight, and then they give you like the advice thing, and there's that one that's just like, no attack is unavoidable, and I'm like, you just put that in there so that I would think that that's the case because there's gotta be a way. There's no way I can avoid that, and then there is, and then I just
Yeah.
feel dumb.
Well, it's after like four more attempts, then you're like,
Yeah,
oh, now I get it.
yeah, but like legitimately, it feels fair. Every boss, like you're like, I can see the pattern, I can see what I need
Uh
to
huh.
do, or at the very least, after some trial and error, you figure it out.
Yeah.
And then then it just becomes a matter of doing it
Right.
to where like
The
for
f-
me,
oh, okay. Go
oh,
ahead.
I was just gonna say like there were some bosses that like I died repeatedly to, and then it clicked and I got it, and then I did it without getting hit.
Yeah. It's I think the fact that one, the smooth controls of the game, and two, the freedom to use 3D models instead of 2D sprites allows for just like this great flow to the game and also like the speed at which you can move. The bosses are fast and aggressive and they have these
Oh yeah.
crazy attack patterns, but again, it all feels extremely fair. Like
Oh yeah.
these are not just oh, these are good Metroid bosses. These are like how you design boss fights in 2D games.
Mm-hmm.
It is so and you never feel mad completely when you die. Instead when you die, you feel that like okay, I got the download, one more try. Like
Like I will get it this time, especially
you
because like
you get to experience that hopelessness of getting destroyed by a boss your first time. And then every subsequent attempt you learn a bit more until you're like, I got this.
and this by the way is excluding the Emmys.
Yeah, the Emmys are not necessarily
They're
bosses. They're
they're
kind of their
they're
own.
they're a beast all unto themselves, and we'll
I
talk
guess
about
yeah,
them.
like in general the idea of the Emmy is how they have their private rooms. Um and like the different mechanics with each one, like it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It very much was a good way of like doing the SAX concept without literally bringing back SAX.
Yeah, it felt like the next natural evolution of the SAX
Hmm.
in
In
concept.
in general, this game just like doesn't nostalgia pander. Like it had mostly its own stuff. It had a
Yeah.
couple of things like as we'll get into Twitter and YouTube spoiled the frick out of this, so this isn't a big spoiler that this is in the game, but there's Kraid's back from Super Metroid, but done in a very different way than it was done in Super Metroid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, like we said, a couple of remixes of music from Super Metroid, but like that's it.
Yeah, it very
they
much.
they came up with their own crud for this game. Like this is a unique Metroid game.
This is just good.
It's amazing that they managed to do that. This isn't necessarily gameplay, but I guess this is a good bridge of something I want to talk about going from gameplay to story, like just a general note that I have. There is one thing that really, really bothers me about this game. It's like the one thing that like really hurts this game. Like it could have just been like this perfect, amazing Metroid game. The biggest thing that bugs me about this is that Mercury Steam chose not to credit everybody who worked on the game.
Ooh.
It was specifically like there's a comment about like based on how valuable they were to the project was whether or not their name got included. And that's kind of scummy.
Oh, why did you tell me that? I wish I could. I lived in ignorance, and now I'm like,
I know.
oh, I hate that.
Like I'm sorry that I have to kind of shatter the dream a little bit, but it is one thing. Like, so I make this point because I want people to understand. There's a lot of people that are like, no, you should just boycott this game. Don't buy it. Like, don't praise it. It's a bad game because, you know, not everyone gets credit for working on the game. And like here's my stance on this, because as we've just talked about through all this, like we played through the whole game, we freaking loved it. I've played through it multiple times even after learning this information. Like here's my thing. The dollar is the thing that does speak the most. And so I understand why people would be like, no, that's unfair, don't buy the game. But the second most thing is that Mercury Steam really, really looks out for the community base, like the people that are playing this game. They follow speedrunners. They look at the tech that they're doing, and speedrunners have even surprised them with sequence breaks they didn't even think were possible, which is crazy. But like they listen to people's feedback, and so what I'm saying is we can still buy the game, we can still play it and enjoy it for the masterpiece that it is, but like you also need to let people know like this is not cool. You credit everybody who worked on this. I don't care if, you know, there's an intern who worked on some like marketing aspect of the game for a single day. Like credit everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
And like that's what I'm saying. Like the boycotts, they don't really mean anything. People tried to boycott Pokemon Sword and Shield, and it still was the highest selling game in the franchise up to that point. Like it's just a thing. Like trying to organize boycotts and ruining everybody's fun does not help with these kinds of situations. But being vocal about, I have this problem with the game. If you fixed this, if you credited the people who worked on the game completely, it would be a perfect game. But like, let that stuff impact your review scores. Let that stuff impact the way you talk about the game. So that way the company learns, oh hey, people are mad, we better not do that again. And then they don't do that again.
Yeah.
Like you gotta be vocal. You gotta be a bit of an activist. Like you can still have your fun. It's not morally wrong to play Metroid Dread, because that's whether or not I got credited. If I worked on anything in that game, I would be proud of it, even if my name didn't show up in the credits. Like,
yeah,
it's just a well-made game, and you can't fault that. Like, But that certainly is a thing. I hope people recognize that, like, you need to be vocal about specific things, not just be the Twitter hate mob. Because, like, the Twitter hate mob never solves anything, and companies don't listen to the Twitter hate mobs. It's why YouTube got rid of dislikes. It's just a thing. Nobody listens to haters, but when you say, this is good, by the way, it could be better if you did this, people listen to that.
They definitely, yeah.
So
I agree with
that's
that.
what I'm saying about Dread. Like, make your complaints known. People should be credited for working on the game. But also, I don't think it's morally wrong to play this. And at the end of the day, like, video games just exist because programmers learned how to sucker us into giving them their money. Like,
That's true.
that's what video games are. Like, corporations don't love anybody. They can't. They're just corporations. But that is a point that I wanted to bring up. That is legitimately something that stops me from saying that it's a perfect game. But outside of that, it's a pretty freaking respectable video game. Like,
It's, yeah.
like, I wish I could know the names of all the people who worked on this, but I respect the heck out of everybody who did anyway. Like, known or unknown.
Yeah, known or unknown, like, you can tell a lot of love went into this game.
Absolutely.
And it very much shows in the game.
Absolutely.
All
right, so I guess we're ready to cover
the story.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, again, it's Metroid, and so it's, like, not much story, so I kind of have it, like, split into, like, story, areas, and bosses.
Yeah.
This kind of awkward three, like, oh, we're gonna talk about these three things at once.
I did have one thing that's kind of at the beginning of the story, but not really.
Yeah.
Is one thing was that the game takes place after Fusion, but, like, this isn't something I can fault the game for because it was a localization issue.
Oh, yes.
Which was that there was no resolution to the Galactic Federation thing at the end of Fusion.
Yeah.
There was like no mention of it, and part of that is because it was lost in translation and especially in other M, and it's horrible localization that, like, I've learned so much about. I'm just like, oh, no wonder this game got screwed story wise. It was like there's the Galactic Federation has, like, separate factions, and then in the English localization they just call it the Galactic Federation. Just all of it's the same.
Yeah.
And so here I was going into this game thinking Samus is going to be a fugitive. And, like, it's not even, like, the consequences of what Samus had done in the last game aren't even addressed.
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, like, they just called her up. Like it almost kind of feels like they were like, all right, we don't need Samus. We got the E.M.M.Is. Oh, shoot, we don't got the E.M.M.Is. Anyone got the number of Samus? like, let's call her back and have her clean this up again.
Well, there is. I have a bit of a theory about, like, the purpose of the E.M.M.Is. I know I've heard some other people express the same sentiment on the internet. We'll talk about that more as we get into spoiler stuff in the story.
Yeah,
but I have some theories as to why, like, these Galactic Federation robots are like there on the planet and stuff. But definitely, like, seeing the trailers and everything, I was going into this thinking, like, oh, Samus is a fugitive. The E.M.M.Is are Galactic Federation robots. They're on the hunt for Samus. And they totally could have taken the story in that direction, and that would have been awesome.
Like, there was this part of me that was hoping they would, and then they didn't. And I was just like, okay, that's fine.
And that's the one,
but that would have been really cool.
Aside from the presence of the E.M.M.Is, the Galactic Federation is not a part of the story, really. Like, it's pretty interesting how not involved they are when, like, the two most recent Metroid games were Fusion and Other M, which were heavily about the Galactic
Yeah.
Federation. And then Federation Force, like, it seemed like they were an important part of the plot, but this one's kind of more just like, no, this is Samus's little journey.
Yeah. I mean, there's also that part of me that maybe they're still holding on to the SAX plan. And so they're like, "Oh, let's send the E.M.M.Is down and harvest the DNA of the X-Parasite that shows up." Um
Right.
and so like, I part of me was frustrated that wasn't even like remotely touched on, but then you meet Big Chozo, dude, and I'm like, you know what? I don't care. This is awesome.
Yeah. And definitely, at the very least, it does feel like a proper follow-up to Fusion in the sense that it's about the X-Parasites still. Like, they're an enemy that came up in Fusion, and it's like, oh, now there's more on this planet. So, like, we gotta go check out what's on this planet.
Yeah.
At least in that sense, it does feel connected to
Oh yeah.
Fusion's story, which is good. And the E.M.M.I with the
Oh, dude.
with like they did like the text to speech robot voice that's like it sounds creepy, but like in a cool way.
I really like it. And there's this part of me that I'm like, did they get a voice actor that they just like synthesized the crap out of his voice?
Yeah, like I can't tell if it's a real person like vocoded or whatever, or if it's like they did a text to speech. Because like the other thing that I would believe totally is that they took the like the text to speech functionality from Tomodachi Life and then just put like filters on it. Because like it has that kind of timbre to it sometimes, but then like the pronunciation of all the words is correct, and so it's, I don't know. I wonder what they did with that.
I'd love to know more, but like I loved it. Like at first I was off put by it, especially because in the previous game, like Samus was like his tone and mannerism like remind me of Adam.
And that doesn't sound like him at all.
Like, you're like, man, that sounds so computer like AI.
But
like,
I do like how it's
cool.
explained that like, since it's not the voice of Adam like directly, but how it's like the like grammatically and like specific word choice and everything. Like you can see the personality come through by the way that he says things.
Oh yeah,
with the classic any objections, lady. I heard that and I was like, yeah, he's back.
I heard that and I started fist pumping and I'm like, this game is so good. I'm so glad.
Great. I guess also coming back from Fusion, I'm surprised there was nothing about the animals.
Yeah, no, I was really surprised. But then also like apparently enough time has passed that they're taken care of. But then also, like, Samus still hasn't given this, what is essentially now her new ship. She hasn't given it a new coat of paint yet. It's still the purple from...
I mean, it's recent.
maybe that's why she needed to take this bounty.
She's like, I gotta get a better ship.
She's like, look, I need a new paint job. Like, you know, purple's great for the gravity suit, but like...
But I keep losing the gravity suit anyway.
Yeah, half the time I'm wearing orange. Like I gotta get a new paint job. And the prices on Planet Whatever are ridiculous.
I remember there was this fan theory that like because Chozo are more like seeking enlightenment and not as much of a violent race in general, that there's a thing like Samus's weapons and all her acquired items like deactivate after a certain span of time. So that way it's like when you're done fighting and using them, like they just turn off and then it's like, okay, like fighting is done, no more need to kill people. And that's why Samus like resets all the time.
Maybe. You know what though? It made sense in this game. Like this is one of the few times where like Samus restarts to 0 and it makes perfect sense.
They explain it pretty well. So I guess we'll get into that. Let's talk about the first area of the game where you crash land. I guess with that, like it's kind of interesting how they do it. They start with Samus waking up not with a cool suit, and you're like, wait, what happened? Where, why? And then they flash back and show what happened. Um,
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool way to do it, just to keep the mystery, but it still is like the opening cutscene, so it doesn't make a difference either way.
A little bit, yeah. But man, that cutscene is so cool.
Uh huh.
And
So
I'll
you see
I'll
in
talk more about like Samus and my like herd like a little bit later, but
uh
like
huh.
right off the bat, something is wrong with her. And oh, I love it.
Uh-huh. It's she gets attacked by this random Chozo, which like everyone's like Chozos have been extinct for who knows how long. Just a Chozo shows up, has like the arm cannon technology like Samus's power suit has, which is crazy enough because it's like, oh yeah, her stuff was made by Chozo, so yeah, they would probably fight with those too.
Uh-huh.
Don't know why we've never thought about that.
Right, considering they give you power-ups, like
Yeah, but just this random Chozo beats the crap out of Samus.
yeah, Samus absolutely gets bodied. Um and just like and then it just drops you into the game after
Mhm.
that. And it's oh, and that area where you start, it is so pretty.
It really is.
It's ugh.
There's I guess I could have mentioned this with the graphics, but there's a specific art style choice they have where the most of the tiles that like you walk on and like the main foreground elements are completely black. And it's kind of interesting because like yeah, there's not as much visual environment personality like in the foreground stuff as there was in older games, but like it makes the backgrounds pop.
Oh yeah.
And I know the big thing about it that they were pushing with this game was having it on the Switch OLED. I think that's a waste of my money personally. Like, I'm not going to buy a Switch
Fair.
OLED because I've already got a Switch and it's perfectly fine. But from what I understand, the dark colors on the OLED screen look a lot better, especially blacks look like very deep black. And so this game in particular, like on the handheld Switch OLED, looks stunning. Like it is one of those things that's just like if you can experience this game on the Switch OLED, then it's like very pretty looking. But if you can't, then like you're not gonna miss too much. It's still a beautiful looking game.
Yeah. I mean, even I just played on my Switch. I didn't even play like in handheld mode mostly. I played on my nice TV, and gosh, this game is so pretty.
Uh-huh. Now it's funny because my TV is not nice, so I played mostly in handheld, but with a pro controller. So like it was like having a very tiny TV. And that was how I played for most of it cuz like my L and R buttons aren't too good on my Joy-Cons. And you need those. You need those for this game.
You need every button in this game.
So yeah, I just kind of like stand it up in handheld mode and then play with a pro controller.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess going back, we haven't gotten very far through our content, and we've been tangenty. But yeah, so the first place in the game is Artaria. And there's an interesting thing as we talk about each of these areas that is very cool to me that I learned. So each of the different environments, it's not in the order that you do them, but just the names of the environments are alphabetically like A through I.
Oh, really?
Did you know, like Ataria, Berenia, Cataris,
oh
Dairon,
my goodness.
Ellen, Gavaran, Hanubia, Itarash. Like there it's A through I alphabetically.
This is some Kirby's Dream Land.
It is,
too.
right?
Like
this is like the
Kirby's Adventure.
The Roy G. Biv crap.
Oh my goodness.
I recently learned that like yesterday, And I was like, holy moly, that's amazing. So that's just a cool little detail about the names of all the environments.
That's gosh, there's so many little tiny details in this game. Like that is ultimately what it amounts to. And
We've
like
only got more to talk about.
I know.
Yeah, but Artaria in general, I think it's a really great like first area.
Oh,
It really
yeah.
helps like ease you into the controls and getting used to everything. But then it's also like a place that you keep coming back to, and it keeps getting updated with more stuff. One of the coolest things to me is that like each of those times that you pass back through Artaria, the music changes with each like
Uh-huh.
time that you do it. And so there's like four different versions of the Artaria music, and they're all pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Also, not long after our little adventure, we meet our first Emmy,
Uh-huh.
which gosh dang, what do I even say about the Emmy? Like the thing was, like, your first encounter with the Emmys, they are so terrifying.
Yeah. Like the first one that you find is like damaged, and it's still just
Yeah.
like freaky.
It's still just like unsettling and like oh, can you imagine if that thing wasn't damaged and you encountered it right there?
Could you
And just
imagine something like that in like a Prime game where it's first person and you see it coming right
oh
at
my
you?
goodness. Oh dude, no. Oh
That
gosh.
would be awesome,
I mean, yes. Like well
but
and because
horrifying.
right in the opening cutscene, it mentions that their armor is some of the strongest stuff in the universe. And I'm
Uh-huh.
just like, oh cool. Can I have a suit made out of that, please?
Mm-hmm.
Because like what the heck?
Right. Well, and that's the thing they talk about in the opening is that they're like, if anyone tries to go to the planet where the X-Parasites are, like they'll just suck them dry and turn into copies of them. Like organic life can't interact with those, but they have the E.M.M.Is, which because of that like armor that they have, they are resistant to.
Which was a actually brilliant move.
Uh
They just didn't realize what else was lurking on that
huh.
planet.
Yep. Plenty
Um,
of other threats, but yeah, it's so cool. The enemy are such an interesting enemy, and I liked the fact that like while they're associated with like the bigger bad guys that we'll talk about later in the game, like they also are kind of just their own like part of the game that's not completely
yeah,
involved with
they're
like the main stuff, and so it feels like there's multiple threats on the planet, which is super cool.
over time they kind of just feel more like a puzzle than they do like a threat.
Uh-huh. That's one of the things I loved about this game was how it was kind of more puzzly. But unlike Fusion, it wasn't just like, oh, use like a morph bomb on every tile until you find where to go. It was like there's environmental setups that you like look around at and you're like, oh, this is what I gotta do, and then you figure stuff out. And then
Yeah,
with the Emmys, it's like you have to puzzle solve while being chased.
there were several times where I would be like, all right, I have yet to explore this room. I'm going to duck in, see as much of the map as I can, and then get out without getting caught,
So you can
so
plan a
that
route.
I can plan like the fastest and safest route through there. And it
Yeah,
was
I love that.
like, and that was so much fun, but it was so stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I
Because
will
that's the thing
say,
with the SAX and Fusion, it was more like just hallways, and then the
yeah,
SAX shows up, and it's just like, oh, it's clear. You just run in the direction that you weren't headed before.
uh
But
huh.
with the Emmys, it's like a whole room. You got to explore the area, get the lay of the land, find out where you're going
Not to
while
mention,
being chased.
like each Emmy, like they evolve and add new layers of challenge because
Mm-hmm.
they have the power up that you get from them when you're
Yeah.
eventually able to defeat them.
I love
Like
that so much how like most of the power-ups you get in the game are from enemies. Like you outsmart them or beat them and then take it from them.
yep.
It's so cool.
But like it's so cool. Like the speed boost. Oh my gosh, the speed booster Emmy
Oh, that one
was
freaking sucks.
That would, especially like you get the cannon so that you can defeat them. And it's like this slog of like just trying to slow it down long enough that you can get it. And
Yeah.
then you're like, I gotta bail. You remember I sent you that video clip of the guy, I think it was the blue E.M.M.I, and how it pops up next to him and he blasts it right there. It's just like how it feels to chew 5 gum.
There was one too of like just like the theme of Metroid Dread. And it was like something where he had this like near miss with the yellow E.M.M.I and then like turned invisible. And it was like still in hunting mode when he turned invisible, and then gets right up next to him and then stops and is like, oh, where is he? In this little cramped area, and then walks away, and he's just like, I can't believe that worked.
Yeah. The E.M.M.Is were fun. I will admit they lost a bit of the terror like towards like the later end.
Yeah, that's how
because
the search action games go. You get more powerful.
well, not only that, but like you kind of learn their pattern.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was the thing. Like once I learned how the E.M.M.Is work, and like, oh, they won't leave their room. So like as long as I'm outside of the E.M.M.I room, I'm safe.
Right.
Um,
But they compensate for the lack of dread.
uh-huh.
They compensate for that by giving them these BS abilities.
Oh my goodness!
Like the purple one seeing through
yeah,
walls,
the purple one
like...
sees through walls, and then the blue one, how it freezes you with like its sight.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Those two made me upset.
I forget when I said this, but I remember we were talking and I was like, whatever the last E.M.M.I is will be your least favorite, and that's the purple one.
Yeah. Well, because the story reasons, but like you don't actually have to face off against the red one.
Right. But like the E.M.M.Is, man. Oh man.
Yeah. They were a phenomenal part of the game. And it's so funny though,
Great
like
inclusion.
they're really cool. The way they move, I loved them. They're A+.
Yeah, definitely.
Great addition to Metroid lore.
The other thing about our introductory level is our first boss, which in my notes, I'm not sure if this is a thing. Like, there are 2 different names that seem to be tied to this boss. There's Scorpius, and then there's just Corpius.
Huh.
I'm not sure why it's got the 2 names. Other bosses are like that too, where they have 2 names and it's weird. But it's the Inviso Lizard with the scorpion tail.
Inviso-Lizzo.
Inviso-Lizzo. Yep, there we go. Can I just say, as a first boss, that is a great first boss.
Oh yeah, that was a solid first boss. A lot of really fun bits. Not to mention your ability that you get from it. The Phantom Cloak.
Yeah, you take its inviso gland from its tail. And so that was the thing. We're kind of all over the place talking about everything with this. This is another gameplay thing, but the Aeon abilities.
Yeah,
I was very pleased with how these turned out for the reason that Aeon was a thing in Samus Returns as well. But the abilities were not as cool in that one. Like they give you like the scan the environment ability like pretty early on. But like the Aeon abilities in general, like they were kind of cool, but these are like useful.
They're so helpful
in a lot of situations. And like the prime example with this one, you get the Inviso Cloak so that way you can hide from the E.M.M.I.
Yeah, well, and my favorite thing was like how it changed how you interact with the E.M.M.I. Because before you just see it and it's just like run. Don't
it's all you can do
think
is
about
run.
it. All you can do is run away. Once you get the Phantom Cloak, then it's like, all right, you now have options. You can run or you can hide. And it's that gamble of like, all right, once you run out of Aeon, you stay invisible, but you start losing health.
Right.
And like your movement is restricted. And so it's like it's always there's those moments where you're just like hiding in a corner and you're watching your Aeon deplete and you're just like, go away, go away, go away, go away, go away, go away.
Yeah. And I guess going back to like the boss that you get it from, just all of the animations for that fight, like when you get the counter and you like grip it by the head and start shooting at it, and then like
the cinematic like takedowns are so good in this game.
The little scene where it starts using like the poison breath stuff. And then just like the ending with how like Samus doesn't even look at it and just like shoots it.
Dude, Samus, I have this a little bit later in my notes, but like Samus is so cool in this game.
Samus is so like, that was the thing with what was the one? With Samus Returns, everyone was like, "Oh, Mercury Steam is doing like this really edgy, cool Samus because they're trying to go tonally like in the opposite direction of other M's depiction of Samus." But like Samus in this game is just like the coolness is cranked up to 10, but then also like the little touches of like body language and everything show like, oh, she's not just like a run and gun killing monster, like she's a person. She just has like a lot of combat experience.
It's I was gonna just about to say the same thing, is that for me it reminded me a lot of, hey, here's our Sonic tie-in.
Yay!
Contact and Graph, specifically their writing of Tails, in how like he was in Sonic Lost World, and he was very not likable in that game.
Yeah.
And then the pendulum swings like hard right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, in the opposite end to get as far away. So then Tails is adorable, but he's a coward. And it's just like, no, just balance your character. That's all. I'm like, on the one hand, I'm like, okay, Samus, like, you could show a little more emotion and like, you know, that's okay. But then like, she's so cool in this game that I'm like, you know what? If this is how Samus stayed for like the rest of the franchise, I would be okay with it.
Mm-hmm. And
I would actually be okay with it.
The cool thing about it, we'll get into points where there's more of this. When she's interacting with a non-hostile,
yes,
I do like how it shows in the body language, like just a lot about her. And also the main thing about this, why I feel like all the crazy action stunts in the trailer shots of like jumping through the tail while the rocks crumble down on the boss and she poses for the camera, like all of the extra stuff, I feel like that is more deserved here than in Samus Returns, for the reason that Samus Returns is Samus's second adventure. Like, yes, it's a remake, but like it's still kind of the beginning of Samus's story, whereas this takes place later on after Samus has been through
so
way
much.
So it feels kind of deserved. Like, now she's like this seasoned veteran who's just like, yeah, I go to hostile planets and I just take down whatever aggressive creatures are there.
This is my fifth adventure, give or take how canon the Prime games are. Like, I know what I'm doing.
And along with that, it's not a detail you get to see necessarily in-game. The only time you ever see, like, Zero Suit Samus, really, is like when you die, like the game over, you have a moment where the suit explodes, and there's Samus there. But people have actually, like, they've ripped the Zero Suit Samus model out of the game, and just looking at it, like in the face especially, Samus looks a bit older in this one. Like, to the point where I'd say like late 30s. You could even make a case for like 40s.
Depending on what bird magic
right, and obviously like the crazy Chozo genes and like the years of training and just like keeping herself fit, and then that,
whatever
like,
happened to her in fusion.
Yeah, and like all these alien DNAs just getting slapped onto you. Like, it would make sense that Samus would be able to stay like healthy into her 40s, but like you can kind of see it in her face. She looks a bit older in this one, and I'm like, I like that. I really do, because it shows that like the series is progressing. Like, Samus is not perpetually this, like, 17-year-old who's doing all this crazy stuff for years. Like,
Yeah,
it
she's an
shows a bit
adult.
more of a time. And that's just a thing in general. I feel like video games do need more, like, older protagonists.
I
There's
agree.
there's a lot of merit to having, like, older people, and also, like, trying to make older characters relatable to young kids. Because you can learn a lot through example. So
Hey, go figure.
so I don't know, seeing Samus the way she's portrayed in this game, it's extremely cool. I really like it. But yeah, what is to quote my good friend, Snowflake the Pirate, catch him on YouTube and Twitch. um, on his notes talking about the game and like talking about these like animated sequences where you do all this cool stuff on the bosses. He's like, all it says here in my notes is Samus is a badass.
Yeah,
Like, and I'm like, there's no better way to summarize it.
it really is. She is a freaking beast. She is so cool.
Yeah, you think Chris Pratt is cool? Try Samus.
Chris Pratt will now play Samus in the Metroid movie.
Why not?
Oh boy. No. One thing. I don't know if this is moving a little too far ahead or not.
No, it's fine.
If you had anything else you wanted to say about any of those areas,
Nah, we covered Ataria.
One of the things for me is how long you go without the morph ball.
Yeah.
Like so much of that beginning chunk of the game, you're just like, where is the morph ball? It's funny because so many people were doing let's plays of this game, and I was like, I haven't finished it yet, I can't watch it. And then I went back and I watched like 5 of them.
Yeah.
And there was one, and I loved it because he kept being like, all right, this has got to be the morph ball, and then it was something else. He's like, okay, this is cool, but where's the morph ball? And then he finally gets it, and he's like, I did it, beat the game, roll credits, and then he just starts playing the credits to the game.
Oh, that's good.
It was just like, this is so good, but like legitimately, you spend so long without the morph ball.
That was the thing. Just first playthrough experiencing that, I was like, "Where the frick is the morph ball?" Because you find so many spots where you could use it, and you just don't.
Oh
have
yeah,
it. And it was extremely frustrating. And then I realized, like later, why they did that was because you have so many more movement options now, especially in the slide. And not having the morph ball for that much time lets you get used to that. And it also shows you a lot of areas where you can't go without the morph ball, so you know exactly what to look for when you do get the morph ball. So in terms of just playing the game, it's kind of like, but like the morph ball should be the first thing you get. But in terms of like game design, it's good.
Yeah. Well, because it usually is like the first power up you get.
It is. More often than not, it is.
If not the morph ball, then like the charge shot, and then the morph ball, and then bombs.
Yeah.
And so it was so weird that like you go through like, I want to say like 2/3 of the game without it.
I don't know if it's
maybe not 2/3.
It's like a third.
Yeah, like a third of the game.
You do like the first 3 areas before you get it, unless you sequence break.
Oh, dude.
Oh man. So the next area is Cataris, which is lava land. And finding out that you could sequence break. First of all, it's for the sequence break there is for early grapple beam. But with that allows you to go right to the area where the where the morph ball is.
Yeah.
And so then it's just like, oh, grapple beam, morph ball, morph bomb before I've even fought the boss. Like,
yeah.
It's cool.
But dang, that boss.
That boss though, it's Krabe.
It's
I made sure not to watch any of the crap that was like I couldn't avoid the fact that Kraid was in the game, like that spoiler was everywhere, but like I didn't see the fight, and so just experiencing that raw, like holy cow, what a fight.
yeah. So I didn't see the fight. Um,
Did you
I
even
did
know that Kraid was in the game?
so sort of. I did that thing where like I out of the corner of my eye saw something's talking about Kraid, and then immediately I was like, nope, didn't see it, didn't happen, nope, blocking it from my memory. And then I kind of just forgot about it.
Okay.
And then I saw him and I was like, oh my god, he's so cool.
Yeah.
um
Oh,
so like
it is amazing.
I had it kind of spoiled, but like I didn't
Right.
know when he would show up. I didn't know where. I didn't know
Mhm.
anything about him. It was just awesome. He Oh, not to mention, he was the first boss that gave me a lot of trouble. And it was so funny because then I beat him, and then like the very next day, like I think we were getting ready to do something,
Yeah,
and you were like,
because were we still playing Chrono Trigger
I
at the
think we
time?
were still playing Chrono Trigger at the time, but you were just like, hey, before we start, want to watch this cool thing if you sequence break? And then it's just like the unique special kills on Kraid, and I was
Mhm.
like, what?
You can insta kill him with the morph ball bomb. That is the coolest thing ever.
It's so cool.
And then it's even crazier. I don't know how this works, but if you get the flash shift before that fight, then you can just do the thing where you dash right into his mouth and just start firing in there. Like that's like they put multiple of these cinematic takedowns. I'm like, somebody get the screw attack before we fight Kraid. I want to see if
I
there's
Dude, you just if you get the screw attack before, you just bop him and he just dies.
you
Like
just like Sonic the Hedgehog style, just like spin and like chop him in half.
it's like Mario stomping on a Goomba. Just Kraid flips upside down and then just sinks into the lava.
I'm pretty sure that's not the case because I've seen videos of people experimenting
Oh, I know.
with stuff, but
I've
so
I've
I don't
seen
think there's any other ones than
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
flash shift and the power bomb, or not the power bomb, the morph bomb.
Yeah.
Uh,
But even still, there are two unique takedowns for this enemy, and
it's so
I
cool.
I have no words. He's so tough too, and like
Mhm.
the whole time that this is going on, I'm sitting here going, "Why are you here?"
Yeah. Yup.
Like, I assume it's a different Kraid, because Super Metroid, like there were the mini Kraids, and so I'm like, okay, this has got to be a different one, but it still begs the question: why are you here? Why are
Mhm.
you chained up?
There is. Well, that's
I know
spoilers.
that's yeah. I
There's
know
the
about that.
unlockables later that do explain how that Kraid got there, but we don't know if that Kraid is
Is the
is the
Kraid,
Kraid.
but it,
Can we also talk about Samus's sass during those scenes with him?
dude,
Like
dude.
how Kraid is like chained there and like roaring right in Samus's face, and she's just standing there like, "You again?"
It's like, okay, you need a mint.
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
legit, like not caring, and then that bit where he launches the little like spike thing, and Samus just ducks out of the way like it's nothing.
Yeah, it's like the what is it? It's like the in One Piece, it's like evasion hockey or whatever, where you like instantly
Yeah,
like step out of the way. She just like sidesteps that like shot like it's nothing.
and like Samus, she keeps doing this thing where like she'll just be walking and just like either casually eyeing her opponent or not even looking, and just start like arm not even raised, just start charging a charge shot.
Just like getting the blast ready, like look what's waiting for you.
And I'm just like, Samus, you gotta chill. Like, if you're this cool, nobody will handle it.
Yeah. There's so much good sass in Samus, like in scenes like that. And
It's
it's
so
again, like I said, she's not an edgy character, and you see moments where she's not just being sassy, like she's being a normal freaking person. But like the fact that she does that to like the big monsters that are trying to kill her just says so much.
it's like she is in complete control of the situation, and then the game gives you control, and then you start dying.
Yeah.
But
You're like, I am not Samus.
it's oh yeah, I'm terrible at this, but
Mm-hmm.
Samus is in control here.
Yeah. So dev intended sequence breaks. Super cool. Everybody who's ever making a video game ever, put these in your game.
Yes.
Oh, I love these. I want this to be like a thing in video games.
It's so cool. Like just them putting that there and just being like, yeah, sure. Figure it out. And
Mhm.
if you can, like, here's your reward. You get to insta kill this boss.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now,
there's multiple.
Right. Now, I do respect that Mercury Steam patches out some of the glitches that are like, somebody could accidentally find this on their first playthrough and it could ruin their first playthrough. Like, they patch out those. I know, like, some of the speedrunning community was kind of sad about that. Like, I don't blame you guys, but it's like, the fun ones that are utilizable and that have tricky setups, like, those are still there. Like, this game has been patched multiple times, and some of the famous glitches are still in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, with like, the more game-breaking ones that you could find on accident, I do respect that they patched those out, at least.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about Cataris?
Cataris. Actually, just something about the Emmys, because it's, dude, it always comes back. We didn't talk about the brains.
No, because that's in Cataris is where you find the first one, because there isn't a
Is it?
brain. Because in Ataria, it's the broken one that you just find, and you get
just find it.
You get the cannon. But in Cataris is the first one where there's the brain.
Yeah, because there's that bit where you walk through the room and then it activates.
Those are so cool.
They're really cool. Well, and it's the fact that it is a giant brain with an eyeball, and then it does the mother brain like the lasers and the little rings.
It shoots the laser blasts and the Cheerios.
which like it's believed that the Chozo, I don't know how true or canon this is, but I believe the Chozo like created Mother Brain. And so
I've heard so many theories about where Mother Brain comes from.
I think the manga had that as canon.
Okay.
And so like that's technically canon.
Yeah, that's probably the closest to canon. But
yeah. But and so like because there's the big Chozo dude there, like it would make sense that they would use that similar power source.
Yeah.
Of like a mother brain, but they're not supreme mother brains. They're just brains.
Yep.
That power the thing, and then I don't know. It's just cool. Also, the two constants in our adventure and our podcast are Sonic and Brains.
Did we talk about Mother Brain in the Fusion podcast though?
Did we?
That's the one that I feel like we didn't.
Maybe we didn't. I don't know.
So at the very least, there's always Metroid and Sonic.
Yeah, Metroid and Sonic.
That one
or
has
a
been
brain.
Consistent. Or gosh dang it, Metal Gear Rising.
Yeah.
But yeah, those brain boss fights super cool. The music for those is extremely good.
Yep.
And just the fact that it's the freaking Cheerio attacks, like
again, like this game, when it decides to do something nostalgic, like it's very subtle in the way that it does it.
Mm-hmm.
It it doesn't like super draw attention to it. It's just like, oh, here's a neat little reference if you know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. This really only matters for the last one or if you sequence break, but after you break off the armor and it's just the brain in its second phase, the screw attack kills it instantly.
Really?
Yeah, so that's like a little like speedrunning strat
I
is to
didn't know that.
get yourself the screw attack and you can just tear through those things.
Huh.
It's pretty neat. There's so much crud like that.
Yeah.
That was one like I was trying to get my sub 4 hours run, and I did the boss without using the screw attack, and then I was like, oh shoot, and then I like reset and went back through and did it. I'm like, okay, that saved me a ton of time. Oh,
Much simpler.
it's funny, but yeah, I do like those little brain things, and then they give you the Omega Cannon that you use to finally fight back.
Omega Cannon is so cool.
Uh-huh.
And again, I love the way that the Omega Cannon works with the E.M.M.Is, because you set up like a long hallway where you're like, all right, what's the best route I can take here that'll give me enough room to like actually stop this thing,
to shoot it without it getting to me. Definitely. Those moments are super like, they're stressful because you're like, okay, now it's just gonna come after me. Like there's no more hiding. I gotta fight it. But it's so cathartic when you finally beat him.
Oh, that feeling of firing that blast and taking it down is one of the most satisfying things in the game.
And definitely. And the fact like the way the camera pans when you use it too, like it gets this like behind the back perspective. It looks awesome.
Chef's kiss.
That's another advantage to having a 3D, like a 3D space for your 2D Metroid, is that you can do camera work like that. Okay, so the next area is Dairon, which you take a train to get there.
Yeah.
I thought the trains were cool.
Yeah, I will say, like, the load times on some of those, like the trains and the elevators and the teleporters, are a little long.
Yeah, they're a little annoying, for sure.
But like then once you get there, like the game just loads flawlessly.
Right. And at the very least, for one thing, the loading screens are beautiful. Like, yes. They're all super cool looking. Like, I love just staring. I would love to just have like an animated desktop background of like Samus and the train or something.
Yeah. Like, oh, dude.
Because those are so cool. But then also, like, the other thing that I came to appreciate about it, like, again, me replaying the game and trying to speedrun, get faster times, there's just a nice breath of fresh air in between, like, rushing to get from place to place. Like, I could just, like, set those on and be like, okay, I have a minute. I can, like, take a sip of my drink or something before I get back to it. So I came to appreciate the loading screens for that reason. And again, like I said, all pre-rendered. They made a different render for each of the suits because the attention to detail is just so nice. Like, they really could have done, like, a Breath of the Wild thing where it's just, like, just a black screen with, like, here's some hints. But, like... And, I mean, they do have some that are like that, but they have those, like, travel loading screens when you go to a different area. They just look so cool. Dairon specifically, I don't have a lot to say about this one.
The water world, right?
No. It's the machine world. Where you first get there and the power's off. And everything's like really dark, and then you activate the machines, and then all the the robots come to life and start attacking and stuff. I will say, like, I kind of prefer it when you first get there, when all the lights are off, because the atmosphere is really cool. The shift between the two is neat, but it's like, oh, the power's on, and now it's not as scary. Like,
well, then it's just, oh, hey, here are a bunch of things that want to kill me.
Yeah,
this is what I'm expecting. Whereas, like, when the power's out, you don't know what's there and what's going to come after you.
You find like a bunch of deactivated machines, and then it's like the save rooms are offline. All the stuff is just inactive, and you're like,
nothing stresses me out more than going through a save room and it doesn't work.
It doesn't let you save.
It's
great.
That is a very special kind of I hate this.
So then you go from there. And the way that I kind of have the timeline of the different stuff that happens is a little messy, but like more or less we'll cover everything.
Yeah.
The next area is Berenia, which is Waterworld.
Oh, okay, okay. Because like the next thing in my notes that I had was like the boss. There.
Oh, the boss there. Okay,
Yeah.
because that's the thing. I don't think Dairon has a boss.
Maybe
I think there's like some of the Chozo robots, which we'll get to those later. Like you go back and it's there, but
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
like I couldn't find anything about a boss in Dairon, so maybe I'm just forgetting one of the coolest bosses in the game. But like,
Yeah, maybe. Here's the thing. Like all of the bosses are great.
uh-huh. Oh, you know what Dairon does have, which is great environmental storytelling. They have the body of Scorpius, the first boss.
Yeah.
And they're like zapping it and it's like twitching. like
like they're like putting it back together as much as they
yeah.
can. It's like,
is...
all right, what's salvageable of this?
Yep. It's like you see that and it's like just seeing like, oh, they're operating on this thing like it's an autopsy, I guess. It's also a great setup for what becomes of that later.
Yeah.
As we'll talk about. But yeah, so
good.
Berenia, it's, what can I say? This is a thing with most Metroid games. You get to the water area when you don't have tools to navigate the water, and so your movement's kind of slow and it's kind of dull. And that's mostly the case here. The music in this area is extremely beautiful. And, like, just the atmosphere is cool enough that, like, you know, I wasn't mad.
Yeah.
I wasn't mad about it. Plus, you get an extremely cool ability. This is where you get the flash shift.
Ah, this is where it is.
And it kind of sucks because you get it in the underwater area and you can't use it underwater.
Mm-hmm.
So for a second, I forgot that I even had the ability. Like, I had to get back up out of there to get to land and use it. But you get it, and it's a freaking dash.
It's
like
an air dash.
What's air dash grounded?
Air dash, ground
like
dash.
you can dash anywhere, like left or right, and it's just like the Metroid series has never seen mobility like this. It's crazy.
Well, it's a game changer. Like
It really is.
Because oh my goodness, boss fights, like I utilize that every single fight. I don't like from the moment I got it, aside from the boss of the area because it's underwater and so you can't.
Yeah.
Like aside from that, I used it in every single boss fight because it's so useful.
It really is just like if a boss is too close to you, you just zip away, get some distance, or like they're going to attack you in one way, so you just jump over them and dash and you're like out of the way. It's amazing.
It's really good. It was a game changer. Amazing.
For real. Aside from that, you kind of have to go in and out of Berenia a couple of times. Yeah. So I forget. Technically, I think the boss is like located in like Ferenia, in a path that like you get to from Berenia. Like you take a teleport there or something.
Maybe.
I forget if that's the case, but it is the next boss you fight after doing the Waterworld stuff, so I just count it as the boss for here.
I just have the big tentacle thing written in my notes.
Do you know what I thought of when I saw this thing?
What?
Do you remember Bakun from Star Fox 64? The giant clam boss?
Oh my goodness.
The moment I saw this thing, it reminded me of that.
Here's the thing. I got the weirdest sense of deja vu from that boss. And I couldn't pinpoint where it was from. And now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh my goodness.
You think it's that?
I think that might have been it.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad I brought that up then.
But yeah.
This boss was really cool. I was amazed that they managed to make an underwater boss that didn't suck.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was still, like, because you move so slow underwater, like, a lot of its attacks are telegraphed, like, from, like, 1,000 miles away.
Right. It gets the tentacle ready, and it's like, from downtown, here I come. Definitely. But, like, For me, this one, learning the tricks to do this boss quickly, despite it being an underwater boss fight, made it a lot of fun. Like learning, um, just how to like activate the two things that drain the water super fast, and
Yeah.
then like learning how to like
Did
counter the
you
tentacles and
did you on your very first time jump onto the thing before draining the water? The little zip line thing?
yes.
I did too. And then you're like,
And what's
wow,
going
I am
on?
going nowhere fast.
What is
I
happening?
wonder
Because
why.
the cutscene shows you the drain
I
things for Pete's sake, but
know.
I just forgot about them. I
I
think what it
did
was
too.
is like I died almost instantly on that fight and then took like a bathroom break or something, so I just completely forgot about the drain things and I was like, how do I hit this guy? Like he's collapsing, he's not attacking, but like I can't hurt him. What do I do?
Oh boy, yeah. Took me a fat minute to figure
Yeah.
it out. But once I did, then I was like, oh, this is not a difficult, especially after like Kraid. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I hope all the bosses aren't this hard. And then that one was like a
Yep.
nice palate cleanser. I was like, okay, that was just tough enough.
Oh, cat
Cat,
noises.
what are you doing?
I wasn't sure
Anyway,
if that was my cat or
no,
yours.
no, no,
But
it was mine. They're
yeah,
wrestling.
yeah.
Ignore them.
No, my kitty's being good. She's eating, and she doesn't have another cat to wrestle with. So
Okay.
that's another constant of our podcast is cats.
Yeah.
The
Um.
list of things we have to bring up every time expands.
Yeah. So I don't have much else in here about like area specific things. I have story specific things.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of these, like, I have a lot less notes for the next few areas, but like we'll just kind of like cover them real quick. But
Yeah.
so the next area you get to is Ellen, or as I like to call it, the land of cutscenes.
I have written in my notes the lore dump.
The lore dump, yeah. This is the point where the game remembers that it has a storyline.
Skip here to avoid spoilers.
Yeah, but like and here's the thing though, like objectively, I can look at this whole sequence and be like, all right, this is a lot of information that they're just literally spewing at us. But on the other hand, I'm sitting there like just like, ooh, give me more. Like this is so good.
It's so good the way they present it because you're in this like super creepy area and you go through an E.M.M.I zone and you're like, oh, like it's I got to freaking run. There's an E.M.M.I, and then you just like fall through like the pitfall, and you're like, what the heck? Is it another boss fight? And it's just like, oh, it's a friendly Chozo man.
Yeah, well, no, because first there's those the Chozo ruins like on the wall, and then the Emmy busts through, and then the Emmy gets shut down.
I guess I didn't
And
put a proper spoiler warning before announcing
yeah,
that to the
yeah.
world, but um, maybe I'll just put like a spoiler incoming thing. Like,
Yeah,
I wanted
probably.
to save myself the editing, but I just was so excited about that that I
I
just
know
announced it.
it's okay, but like, yeah, we meet a friendly Chozo, which is a really big deal for this franchise.
Not just a friendly Chozo, a living Chozo.
Yeah, a friendly living Chozo, and just
And this the first thing I want to talk about with this, this is one of the biggest examples I have of like the expressive body language of Samus. How she's like like Chozo walks up and the most recent experience she's had with a Chozo was getting her butt kicked by one. So she's just like gun pointed at him and she's like, don't you freaking do nothing. They kind of just stare at each other for a moment. And then he stops and he just bows, as is customary in Chozo.
Chozo culture.
Yep. He just like offers a bow and he just kind of stands there meekly, and then she just like rests the cannon and she just kind of is like sitting down just looking at him, taking it in, and it's like, oh, that's so cool.
It's a really great bit of storytelling, especially because like so much of the Chozo are so wrapped in mystery,
Uh-huh.
and like the thing is that Samus grew up in that culture, and so like she knows about this, but we as the audience know so little.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like,
I will say the most expansive stuff we learn about the Chozo is through the Prime games.
that's fair.
So I can imagine that for you, like, it might have been kind of strange, like, only having the manga to go off of, like,
Yeah.
with your experience with the Chozo. For me, like, the playing through Prime 1, like, I was just eating it up. I was happy to learn, like, anything I could about the Chozo, because they were so interesting to me. So, like, seeing a living one right there, and he's just like, oh, hey, how's it going? I was just like, oh, he's here! Tell me everything.
Yeah, and he does.
And he does.
It's a good old Quiet Robe.
They give you a lore dump. They have the remix of, like, the Lower Brinstar music.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's Lower Brinstar. I didn't notice at first, but then when I went back and listened, I was like, oh shoot, this is really cool. And like he has his own Chozo bird language, and it's just and I love that bit though, like how, you know, we're getting all of this lore dump and we learn about Ravenbeak. And you know, and it's like, all right, all the Metroids are dead. His plan is ruined. Except there's one Metroid left. And it's you. And I'm just like, oh shoot. That's why the E.M.M.Is want to stab you and suck out your DNA.
Because they want that sweet, sweet Metroid DNA.
Oh, and it just like it all clicks in that moment. And then we get one of the coolest things in the whole game. We get dialogue from Samus.
Yep. So not only do we have voiced cutscenes, but Samus is not a silent protagonist.
She has been silent this whole game.
Like the whole game up to that point, but then like she's there with Quiet Robe, and she's just like, "Don't worry, like I'll take care of it." And she says it in the Chozo language too.
She doesn't even say it in English. She speaks in this language that she grew up speaking. And it's so good.
It's so amazing. Like to think about, like, she has not been able to speak to anybody in that language for years. For like literal years of her life. And then just like the fact, like, she kept that, like, because she doesn't stutter or anything, so she's still fluent. Like, she just kept that with her that whole time. It's like,
it's so cool.
That's heartwarming.
Not to mention that it also plays the theme of Samus Aran, like from Super Metroid, like the main theme from Super Metroid. And it just the trumpets kick in right as she says it, and I'm just like, oh, Samus. How are you so cool?
I like this too. I forget where I saw this. I think it was like a Polygon article or something talking about that scene, but they were like, Samus talking here is so important and says so much about her character for the reason that up to this point, she doesn't say anything, but she can talk. She's not a silent protagonist, so it's like her silence is like a deliberate thing. Which shows a very, like, calm, like, reflective personality and, like, not saying unnecessary things. And so it's like, it just adds so much to Samus's character. It's so beautiful.
Especially because, like, we get no other dialogue from her for the rest of the game, barring, like, one, like shout from her.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, this is it, and it's not even in English. It's in the bird language, and it's
now there's the cynical, jaded part of me that's like, oh, it's for easy translation to other languages, kind of like Mario Odyssey. They have a made up language in that. I don't know. You haven't played Mario Odyssey.
I haven't played Mario Odyssey.
Well, that's the thing. They have a made up language in that, and it's great. It's kind of like Mario and Luigi. Also, how they have the Italian gibberish or whatever. But what was it? But like, So there is the part of it that's like, oh, it's for easy translation, but it's like, no, shut up, it's beautiful. She's speaking the language of her people.
Well, and so here's the thing too, because like again, the pendulum swings in the opposite direction of Other M, where like Samus did nothing but talk that whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And like here, like letting her talk, like shows that she's still allowed to emote.
Mm-hmm.
She's still allowed to like have a voice, just that like she
Right.
speaks when it's appropriate.
Because that was kind of the whole thing. Everyone was like, no, Samus doesn't talk. Like, no dialogue in cutscenes. Like, only show through action. Unga bunga.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and
because Other M was so polarizing, like, people felt they had to take that stance, and it's like, no, you can punctuate a scene very perfectly by having her speak.
it's you know what's funny, just as a comparison, because
Yeah.
I've been, because I'm a monster for D&D and I consume D&D content like they're
Yes.
Skittles. I've been listening to like this YouTuber it's called Player Roll, and he's been
Right.
doing a lot of like, okay, how to play X character archetype in D&D. And he's like, how to play like the quiet character well. And the kind of one of the things that he pointed out is that it's like, you can speak, you just only speak when it's necessary, and that is what gives your words weight. And like that's
Yeah.
very much what this scene is that like, like I said, twice in this game, one is just her yelling, and then this sequence is not even in a language, but it is this bold, direct confirmation of just, I will take care of this. I will see it to its end.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's it.
Okay, this is a weird comparison to bring up, like extremely weird. I'm pretty sure anyone who's just like regular gaming scene will not know what I'm talking about, but I guess this is just a me to you thing that the listeners can enjoy. Do you remember that video I sent you when I was in Ecuador of that depiction of the nativity? Where where like there's almost no dialogue. It's mostly just like music and visuals, and then whenever they do speak, it's in like Aramaic or something. So you can't even understand anyway.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah,
you might need to jog my
again.
memory.
Very interesting comparison to bring up on a gaming podcast, but like that is another example of that exact same thing. Like this scene with Samus did the exact same thing for me, where it's like almost like it's not as important like the words that they say so much as like the character that is expressed through them.
Mm-hmm.
And like the few times they do say words, like they have more weight, even though you can't understand them. Just like seeing the characters talk is like, oh wow.
Yeah.
Very, very similar vibe I got from that.
And once again, I know I brought this up in Chrono Trigger, but like my whole thing about, chosen one protagonists versus like a character that just chooses to do the right thing. Like this is a very weird situation where Samus kind of is a chosen one because like technically she's the last of the Metroids through
It is through circumstance, but it's like this is kind of her fate now.
Yeah. Like she was thrown into it, but rather than like she still has the choice to just run from it, but instead she chooses to tackle it head on because she's like, this is a wrong and I'm going to right it.
Right. Well, and it's her words in the opening narration too is like specifically she says, as the only one who can stand against the X-Parasites, it's up to me to stop them. Like that responsibility is thrust on her, but she takes it seriously. She chooses to do something about it because she can.
It's the great power, great responsibility thing.
Yes,
like she very much is like, I have this power. I am going to do something with that power.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just Samus
beautiful.
is so cool. She's one of my absolute favorite characters in media. Like And then
Right. One
and
thing I
then
wanted to
oh
say
yeah,
really
yeah,
quick
yeah.
before we stray too far away from the tangent, if anyone actually is interested in that random nativity depiction that I brought up,
Oh.
even if you're not a Christian, it's extremely beautifully shot, and it could just be like worthwhile like filmmaking entertainment for you. So if anybody wants to see that, it's from 2019's Light the World program, and specifically the video is called "The Christ Child." Um, just extremely beautiful depiction of the
Yeah.
nativity. Um,
That's an interesting comparison,
and I
but like
and the main reason I bring this up in case anyone wants to see it is because it is kind of the same thing as like Metroid's like show don't tell kind of storytelling.
yeah,
um,
which Metroid's really good at.
yeah, it's
Like
extremely good at it.
it's funny that we're saying that right after we're talking about this big lore
Right,
dump.
there is the lore dump, but it's like the only cutscene in the game, pretty much.
It really is like if you look up like cutscenes for the game, it's mostly just your talks with Adam.
Yeah.
like it's just Adam talking. And it's just him being like, "You are no match for Ravenbeak."
He's too cool, Samus. You can't do it. Accept your
He's-
helplessness.
He's so cool.
Not even God of War's David Jaffe can stand up to the might of Ravenbeak. Did you hear anything about that? I'll try not to stay on this tangent for long.
No,
But it was a game dev who was like checking out Metroid Dread, and he was not good at it, so he was trying to say it was a bad game because he wasn't good at it.
because didn't he get stuck in like a really easy room?
Yeah, there's an area where you shoot down the ceiling has just beam blocks, and you just shoot them, and the level design funnels you in that direction of like figuring out like, oh, maybe I should shoot the ceiling in like a very obvious and natural way, and he couldn't figure it out, and then when he did, he's like, this is bad game design. And so the internet just clowned him, and it was funny because
yeah.
in the process of clowning him, everyone was like, this game is really well designed. Like,
I go figure it got nominated for Game of the Year.
yeah, so that was just a funny little thing that cracks me up.
That's so funny. What I was gonna say is one problem I do have though happens shortly after this scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it's once again it's my just very minor nitpick.
Yeah.
And it's
Let's hear it.
you know shortly after Quiet Robe gets shot down, and just you see Samus's face, and it's the expression they chose to give her. Just
Oh yeah.
it's she like this is the first Chozo she has seen in probably a very long time, let alone had a conversation with.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets gunned down right in front of her, and she just kind of looks like mildly irritated.
Yeah.
like you know, and I realized that like all we ever really get to see of her like at most in this game is just her eyes.
Yeah, like
And
even
so-
like a look of like surprised horror or something.
Yeah, like there's
And
like
then-
like a split second of shock, and then she just looks mildly pissed off.
It's yeah, if they
Like-
could have done
like-
more of
like-
like a shock and then a quick turn to anger, because you don't want to
Yeah.
do like the. I mean, I hate to bring it up. It's we're not just beating a dead horse; we're mashing it into a fine paste. Other M with the whole Ridley thing, like you don't need to go that far in making it emotional, especially for a character we just met a few seconds ago. But I do agree that Samus probably could have stood to emote a bit more.
Just the tiniest bit more emotion, I think, would have really sold that scene.
I think it is fair to say, like, there naturally are some people that's like they don't wear their expressions on their face per se.
Yeah,
And it would make sense if Samus was that kind of person, but like I don't know.
yeah. Well, it's because they actively showed us that expression,
Right, if you're gonna do
Like-
a close up on the face, like give us something.
Yeah, like I would have liked to see her just a little more angry over that
Yeah.
instead of like, oh, somebody messed up my order at Starbucks.
Yeah.
like I will say though, and part of me forgot about this, is that after you defeat him, there is a brief thing where she does kind of like dwell on the corpse of Quiet Robe.
Mm-hmm.
Because
and it's so sad that they leave it there.
I know. Well, and then even more so what happens later, but
right.
it just like that moment, I was just like, oh man. Like
it's just so like Samus finally has just like a good friend and they take that away from you.
yeah.
It is one of those things. I almost wonder if they had saved Quiet Robe for later and then done like a baby Metroid kind of thing where he dies a bit more heroically. Like, do you think that would be ripping off Super Metroid too much, or that would have been a more interesting way to do it?
I think it was good where it was. Not to mention, Quiet Robe shut down the E.M.M.Is.
Uh-huh.
And so after that fight, you go through the E.M.M.I rooms, and the E.M.M.Is are just standing there. Like, they are just frozen there.
Yep.
And that is one of the most terrifying things, because you're like, they can't hurt me. I know they can't hurt me, but I do not like being next to them.
Uh-huh. It's just like... It's like being next to a sleeping bear. Like...
Yeah.
You're asleep, but if at any moment you are not asleep, then I will be not alive.
Oh, man. And then the next bit,
you get the X-Parasite.
Yeah, so
well, the X-Parasites, like, you find that they've been kept there,
and that they have been multiple. It's amazing how fast those things spread.
Yep.
Not to mention, it's a great reason for like the difficulty spike.
Yeah.
Like, because like first off, that whole thing how like it's all locked up and you go in and you accidentally open Pandora's box and you let them just run wild on the planet.
Yep. And then there's that one stray red one that comes back for Quiet Robe.
Oh, man.
I saw that and I was just like, no, don't make me fight him. Don't make me have to deal with him. Like,
oh, man.
And it's he reactivates the E.M.M.Is, because that was the whole thing about that. Like, Ravenbeak needed Quiet Robe because he was the one that could control the E.M.M.Is.
And you know what sucks is that he repeats the thing that Samus said. Like, just that last Samus's last words to him, and he just starts repeating it like a zombie. And I'm just like, oh, break my heart.
Yeah,
I've known this character for all of 5 minutes, and my heart is already breaking for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that did some things to my emotions, definitely.
Yeah, and then the E.M.M.Is get back online. And not to mention, that this second half of the E.M.M.Is, those are some of the most brutal ones.
They are so dang annoying.
They I'm gonna say it, they just straight up cheat.
Yeah, they do. Especially the purple one.
Yeah.
Purple one cheats.
You know what, though? Like, seeing the X-Parasites and then absorbing them felt like such a nostalgia trip, though.
Yeah,
for, like,
didn't it?
Fusion. Like I felt like I was playing Fusion again, and I was so excited. To the point where, like, when you defeat, like, your first of X-infested boss, and it turns into the core.
Yep.
Like, I both was like, oh, this is amazing. Oh, I forgot how much I hate this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because that was one of my biggest complaints, was like struggling my way through a boss fight, and then it goes into this last form, and I'm just like, no, I already won. Just give me the thing.
Yep. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but when you get the storm missile, like, you slice through those things.
Yeah. But, like, the fact that they did that, though, because, like, it felt like, you know, a very big love letter to Fusion.
I almost wish they brought back the music from Fusion.
Oh,
Like the
dude.
music would turn into the X-Parasite music when they show up.
Oh,
I think that would have been a case where like the nostalgia pandering would have not been pandering at all, and it would have just been an extremely cool callback. But
I mean,
the fact
even
that they're
if-
in the game at all is
yeah,
very cool.
the fact that it turns into the core is still like nostalgia enough for me that I was like, oh my goodness, I love this.
Also, I think this is the case. You don't have to hit them on a specific weak point, right? You can just shoot them anywhere.
Not this one, thankfully. I bet if there were more of them, probably, but
Because there's 2 times I think where the bosses turn into those.
yeah. Well, there's one that like the core dies in a cutscene.
Right. I'm saying specifically there's 2 that you fight, and I'm pretty sure they don't have the weak points like they did in Fusion.
Yeah, which is nice.
Which is very nice. Also, the fact that you can just shoot them with your regular beam, and it makes like health and missile pickups fly out of them.
Well, so I think that was a thing in the original.
Yeah,
Fusion.
that was the thing in the original as well. But just it's there. It makes it more manageable.
It is.
But it's very cool. So the other boss that you do get in Ellen, I believe, is the what is it? The Chozo soldier.
Oh yeah,
Which
the
they
Chozo
kind of just
Elite.
become like mini bosses as the game goes on, but
Yeah, and then they throw 2 of them at you at once.
yeah.
Well,
that's
that
the,
one in particular.
What's the one? No, it's the robot Chozo.
Oh,
Like there's the
right.
robo Chozos, and then there's the actual Chozos.
Oh yeah, because the actual Chozos are the ones like their face splits open. Into,
Yeah. They get
Dude!
the big like chompy mouth, like,
but it's like all goopy
and they shoot like the black like goop beams at you.
oh, dude, that's the thing too. Is like that was one of those bosses that once again like I died a lot to, but once I learned the pattern, like.
Oh, there's a cool thing about the Chozo soldiers. It requires so much like technicality of like your approach into the room. But if you can get a Shine Spark charged and you Shine Spark into them, there's like a unique animation of it just like knocking them flat on their back. And like it immediately skips the first phase and they go into the like the big chompy mouth second phase.
Really?
It's so cool, man. There's so many of these bosses that you can enter the room with a Shine Spark and run into them and like basically kill them in like 1 or 2 hits.
That's so cool.
It's freaking awesome.
Oh man.
There's,
I love this game.
There's so much cool stuff in these games. So yeah, the next kind of area that you go to is Gavaren. You don't fight the boss there until later, but Gavaren is like the nature kind of planet.
Right. That's where those like giant whales were that shoot the laser at you.
Yeah. Those things.
And-
Okay, you know what those whale enemies made me think of? They were like a Kid Icarus Uprising type of
Yeah.
enemy. They very much gave me Kid Icarus vibes.
Well, and then so like there were those, and then there were like just those little like leaf things that like you kill them, they turn into tiny X-Parasites. The snack size.
Oh yeah. They're like the little like spider guys, right?
Well, not like the spider. Like I'm talking, they just
Oh,
like,
the little
leave.
like the little like swarms of like leaf bug things.
Yeah, those.
Okay. Right, they turn into little snacks.
That's what I said. I'm just like, oh, bag of Skittles. Don't mind if I do.
Samus is like, oh good, you brought my Flintstone gummies. Now I can get my vitamins.
My vitamin X.
Oh, delightful. But yeah, and then there's also those crappy like spider enemies too that like jump at you. I hate those things. Especially like the X-Parasite infested ones that they do their little hoppy thing like super fast and you have to counter it or else you lose 1,000,000 health.
Yeah.
What's the thing? There's also like, so when you get the ice beam, or not the ice beam, the ice missiles.
The ice missiles, because
which
the
they
beam
brought those
will
back.
never be a thing.
Yep. And it's probably more convenient that it's
No.
that way.
I like having it as your missiles. I will admit though, there is this part of me that misses going like the impact the super missiles have
Uh-huh.
feels like it hits a lot harder than the ice
Yeah.
missiles.
Well,
Even
and
though they're
it's weird too because the super missiles, at least in Dread, they fire faster than the ice missiles, and they deal more damage than the ice missiles. So like on
really
bosses, it's actually like if you sequence break and don't get the ice beam, that actually is sometimes more valuable.
interesting.
It's weird. I don't know why they made the ice missiles not as good. I guess it's just so like it'll freeze the common enemy, but like you should still make them good on bosses.
Yeah, that was one of the things is that I definitely used way more missiles than I probably should have been using a beam.
Well, it's just yeah. I mean, they're useful.
Yeah.
They are useful, especially like freezing enemies and stuff. But what was I gonna say? So you go from Gavran. We'll come back to Gavran to talk about the boss afterwards. But the one thing I don't like about Gavran is that specifically there's a lot of paths where you seal them off, like with those grapple beam blocks or whatever,
Yeah.
where you slide them and then you block your way that you came in from, so you can't go back that way. I don't like that Gavran does that like 3 times.
It very much does.
It's a little too annoying in my opinion, but at least the environment is pretty. It's got those mushroom things that you need the ice missiles for.
Yeah.
From
It's got
Fusion.
the mushrooms.
Those little gross fungal things. Anyway, so then we go to Ferenia, which I believe is like it has kind of more like a palace look to it.
Yeah.
Very, very pretty level. Has one of the worst Shine Spark puzzles. Maybe not the worst, but like one of them. Let's see. And then at this place, this is where you fight the boss. It's called Eskew, which is it's like the bug thing that gets all electrical.
Oh, right.
And it fires the little homing shots, and that's where you get the storm missile.
Yeah.
I didn't think this was like the coolest boss, but it was another boss, and it was fun.
Yeah.
Speedrunning, it's a pain.
I can imagine.
Some more sequence breaking tidbits for you. This is another boss that the screw attack annihilates.
Ooh.
Like the speedrun route is like you store a shine spark, and then you shine spark into it for big damage, and then just hit it with a screw attack, and it's instantly dead. And it makes me mad that people can beat it that fast because this boss was a pain for me. Just really requires quick reflexes with all the stuff it's shooting at you, and it like dashes at you, and you can't always hit it because it gets electrical. Yeah, plus I think this is the first boss where it turns into the core thing.
Yep.
So that was neat. Let's see. From there, then you go back to Gavaran, and then you fight the boss where you get the cross bomb from.
The cross bomb, I want to give a special shout out to this. That is such a great power up that like it still has its uses, but like after you get the power bombs, it kind of becomes obsolete.
Yeah. Well, that's why they don't give you the power bomb until the end,
Yeah.
but
But like I wish we'd gotten the cross bomb earlier.
yeah, definitely. Because I could see all these puzzles where you have to use the cross bomb to get the item, and I'm like, I see those, and I'm like, okay, I have to get something that I don't have in order to get this. And I kept walking past them and like, what am I supposed to do here? And then I got the cross bomb and it was like, oh.
Yeah. Well, the cross bomb's just it's an interesting power.
Yep. It's a bomb that explodes in a plus shape. Bomberman approved.
Yay, Bomberman.
Oh, I loved it if only for that. It made me think of Bomberman. But the boss you get it from, Golzoon.
Oh
which is an
yeah.
interesting name. It is funny. Like you fight the little. There's like those like kind of bulky enemies with like the little like
Crab pinchers.
yeah, they're almost kind of like praying mantis kind of like blades. And
Yeah.
it does those swings. So you fight like a dinky little one, and then the X-Parasite comes out of it, turns into a bigger one, and then you fight that, and then it turns into the boss, which is like a massive one of those. It was a neat little misdirect.
Yeah. Well, and because like again, that's how the X parasites were in Fusion, was that they would mutate and evolve.
Uh-huh. So that was a neat little thing, and the fact that it just has like the little like homing reticle thing that does the plus shape blasts.
Yeah.
Good way to prep
Once
you
again,
for what the cross bomb is.
the X parasites, in addition to the E.M.M.I, like they use the power that they give you,
Uh-huh.
and so that's why you get it from them.
Yeah, it's super cool. Okay, and then after that, we get our little excursion where we go back to Artaria because it was frozen over.
Mm-hmm.
First you get the gravity suit in Berenia.
Yeah, which by the way, the gravity suit. So I've not been the biggest fan of the gravity suit in all of these games. Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't look bad, but I like the red and the orange with like the green.
Yeah.
I think just color wise it looks great. But this game, the gravity suit looks so good.
It looks really good. Like that's always my thing. I'm sad to lose the Varia suit, but like gravity suit looks real good in this game.
Yeah, well, especially I like the blue. Like the purple and the blue together looks so good.
Yeah, it's a good and the white too.
And the white
accents. It all just works very nicely and
very
like,
very nice cool colors.
The just like the bulk on the shoulder pads at this point makes them look super like threatening and everything. Like you see this Samus and you're like, this Samus is ready for a fight.
Yeah, well, and then even like the green little like lightning bolt glowy bits. I'm just like, oh, those look cool. I like these.
For sure. So the cool thing is we get the section where we retread Artaria and Cataris for a little bit. But they are frozen over, so it completely changes like the layout of the level and how you explore them. Just a cool little detail, good way to make use of environments that you have in the area. But the best thing to come out of it is that you need to adjust like the thermal the thermal energy to thaw out all the ice. And the area where the reactor is, there's the freaking experiment number Z57. This boss is so cool.
It's so cool. Well, it's interesting because like it's that same first boss, but now infected by an X parasite, which is interesting because we'd seen it like work, the machines working on it, and if you go back to that room, I think after you let the X out, it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah, specifically after you release the X, it's gone. And then you find it here, and it is so cool. Like, the cutscenes do such a good job hyping up this fight. The environment is so cool. The music is great during this fight. And it's fast-paced, high-energy action.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too, because like I feel like for the last couple of fights, it's been like E.M.M.Is and just kind of like mook mini bosses that we've been defeating.
The Chozo robots and soldiers and stuff.
Yeah. Like nothing like super cinematic.
Yeah.
And so you get to this, and it feels so cinematic.
Yep. Did you ever get the counter?
Yes.
Where Samus rides on it and it starts running around the generator like
yeah, and like mind
so
you,
cool.
this is all over that giant pit of lava, and you're just like shooting at it, and I'm just like, oh man. Not to mention when you defeat that thing and it like grabs Samus and almost pulls her over the edge.
It's so
Like
cool.
the first time I was so stressed right there because I thought that I was gonna have to do a quick time event.
Right? You never know. Um, I think like what has got to be the coolest thing for me about this fight is the fact that it has that segment where the wind starts pushing you, and because of you get used to seeing the wind, and you're like, oh, that's a speed booster thing. Whenever there's wind pushing you, you use the speed booster to get past it. So you can use your speed booster and you dodge the shots. And if you store a Shine Spark and then Shine Spark into it, it instantly kills the boss.
It's so cool. It's
That
another
was
again
so cool.
unique takedown for the boss. That's just like, oh, if you think to do this, like, yeah, you can definitely do it.
There's also a thing specifically. It's so hard to do. I have an easier time hitting it from like the left of the screen to right. But if you hit it from underneath, like you run under the head and then use it upward, the camera pans up like under Samus and gets this cool like underneath shot of Samus flying into it. Um, and that happens a few times in the game when you use the Shine Spark. If you use it at a specific spot, like the camera pans like that. So it's just super cool. Honestly,
Yeah.
like a lot of people are saying that's like one of the best bosses in the Metroid series, and I'm very inclined to agree. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's
really
hard, but like once again, its attacks are well telegraphed
Uh-huh.
to where like, it doesn't feel unfair.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh man. I'm trying to think like what else there is, because then I think it's after that you go and you get the screw attack.
Um,
Or no, what do you do?
let's see. No, it's from that because you beat him
Oh,
and then it
right.
opens a path back into the frozen
That's right.
Artaria, and that's where the screw attack is. Was like in that area that was sealed off before.
Right. And this is one of those, it's every Metroid game. Once you get the screw attack, it's like, all right, we're done here.
Only bosses can stop me now. Like bosses with specifically screw attack immunity are the only things.
Yeah.
Because you can just mow through the enemies like it's a nice big lawn.
There is one, technically two, power up left, I think, after that.
Right. Following the route of where you go after you get the screw attack, you go to Hanubia, which is the like the dark stormy area.
That's right.
And this level's beautiful. I have a thing for that, like the aesthetic of the dark stormy like final area. And man, this Hanubia is beautiful. Like the atmosphere is great. The fact that like the place is just like you see like the Chozo warriors like hopping in the background.
Yeah.
Like telling you like, oh, we're gonna have to fight a few of these coming up. And this is the one where you get the cool reveal of the first moment. Like you see more of that weird thing that was happening to Samus at the beginning.
Yeah. I didn't mention it too much, but like all throughout the whole game, like Samus's hand has been like glowing and like
And she get these she has these moments where she kind of like stops and like her eyes widen and you're like, oh, what is that?
I love it. I love it so much.
So then on Hanubia, after you fight the first of the Chozo warriors,
do you fight the first one?
This is no, not that. No, this is where you see that there's like an enemy coming to charge at Samus.
It's the red Emmy, I thought.
Yeah, the red Emmy is where it first. There's like an enemy that goes to charge at Samus, and she goes to fight back, and then she gets stopped. Like her hand starts glowing, and she's like, "What is that?" And then she just like finishes the enemy. But then you walk into the Emmy room.
Yeah.
And freaking the red Emmy, it's like, oh, which item do you have? The power bomb. So
guess what I'm gonna abuse?
It just nukes you. Like you're just standing there, you're trapped in the room, like there's no exit. And you hear like the like E.M.M.I approaching music, and then you just hear a power bomb go off, and the screen like goes all white, and you're just on the floor, and the red E.M.M.I starts walking up to you like, do 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 do, gonna destroy you.
Oh.
Oh,
And
it's a
then
great setup.
yeah, well, and then just the reveal of like you countering the E.M.M.I. That's the thing. I was never good at the counters of the E.M.M.I, but I
Right.
got that one, and there's this part of me I was like, was that a cutscene, or were they just really generous with the timing on that because you had to do it?
I will say it is a cutscene.
Okay,
It,
I
it
didn't.
it made me mad because like I'd gotten a few counters on the E.M.M.Is, but I was never like particularly good at it. So I saw that and I was like, oh, I got it! I did the counter, and I was like, oh, it's a cutscene.
Yeah, yeah. But it's the
um,
fact you counter it, and like you do, your hand does the same thing again.
the glowy thing.
And then while Samus is distracted, the Emmy goes and pins you and goes for like the second phase, like your last shot, and you catch it by the needle and drain its energy. And it's
Mm-hmm. And
Samus is so cool.
and it's so cool too because like as you're sucking the life out of this thing, it's like the brain that's attached to the system and like to the
Oh,
E.M.M.I,
right.
it drains the power right out of the brain. Like it just fries the whole system. That's why on the last one you don't have to fight the brain, because it just like when Samus does that, it fries the whole system.
Uh-huh.
It's so cool.
And then what's great though is that then like immediately after that, one of the Chozo soldiers comes at you and you
Mhm.
fight it. But like before, you would do this like counter sequence to finish it off, and you would like blast it in the mouth. But now Samus, with like her new like draining power, like smashes its face into the ground and then just drains the life out of it. And, like
Mhm.
even right down to the moment where like she does the fist clench and her health like goes back to full.
Yeah.
Like almost ironically like Raiden in Metal
Yeah.
Gear Rising, like
Uh-huh.
and it's so cool. It's so cool when she does that.
It's just plain old awesome watching this move. Um I just remember seeing this and just being like, the final step, like Samus is Metroid now.
Samus is a Metro. Well, it's not the final step yet.
No, it's not the final step yet, but like I remember seeing that and being like, what's the Kronk? Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, because then I believe you go into the next room and Adam's like, this is weird.
actually,
Your
no, that's the thing. Adam doesn't react like it's weird at all.
Oh yeah.
He's
Not
he's
that
just
it's weird,
like,
but
it's your Metroid DNA. Like you, like Metroid, you can now suck the life out of things.
yeah, which is so cool. I'm surprised it took this long for that power to happen.
I know, but it's like you see it happen, and you're like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Like
No,
you got
and
the Metroid DNA, so
And it's so cool because it's her hand, which is kind of like the Metroid's teeth.
yeah.
And I love it so much. It's such a great idea.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny that like we really do come full circle with like the name Metroid originally coming from like Metro and Android, and so it's just supposed to be like a robot dude. Um,
Yeah.
and then they recontextualize the meaning of the name Metroid. But then it's like, oh, but Samus is the Metroid. Like,
Yeah. Well, and so there's the meme of like like the galaxy brain, like how it just the tiers of how intelligent something is, and it's
yep.
like the series is called Metroid because it's cool and spacey. The main character is named Metroid, and then like the last one is that the word Metroid means ultimate warrior, and this is the story of Samus's transformation into the ultimate warrior.
Yep.
And I'm
It's
like,
so
I
awesome.
love that. I love that so much.
It really brings it all together, and it's like in a game that does not contain Metroids, like the enemy Metroid, having Samus be like the Metroid,
It's so cool.
it just brings it all together in a way that doesn't like need to retcon anything in past stories. Like, it's super clever.
It's really good, because that was always something that bothered me, was like, oh, there's no Metroids. Like, why do we even call it Metroid? Why don't we call it Samus?
Yeah.
And then because I hadn't played Fusion at the time, and then I was like, oh, this is really cool. And this just builds on that.
But even then,
more.
like with Fusion, they still had like, oh, the secret area where like the other Metroids were being contained. So it's like, oh, there still are some creature Metroids in the series.
Yeah.
But like in this one, it's just Samus.
Yeah, Samus is the last Metroid, and currently she is in captivity on planet ZDR.
That's great. Yep. So with that, as we get into the final area, Itarash, this is where I will put up like the ultimate last spoiler warning, because this is where we get into like our final battle and everything. Already at this point, like there should have been a spoiler warning. Like if you just check the what is it? The timestamps will have like spoilers from this point on. Skip to here when there's no more spoilers, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But in case, like, once again, if you've been listening and we've been talking about this game, now that we're at the finale, if you want to try it, like, please do. It's a good game. But yeah, then the cool thing is we find Hanubia, like in there. There's like the lift thing.
They're cats fighting again.
Cats again. One of them's a Metroid. It's trying to suck the life out of the other cat. No, what is it? It's so interesting. Like, I didn't think about it initially how weird it was. Because I was too busy being hyped. But you get like that conversation with Adam, and he's like, you now have, like, now that you've unlocked this latent Metroid ability, you have the tools you need to beat Ravenbeak. Go confront your destiny. And it's such a weird thing for Adam to say, but, like, I didn't think about it. I was just like,
yeah, I didn't either.
They're trying to tell me that this is the final boss. Like, I didn't even think that anything was up.
Yeah.
But, like, then you get that little, like, it's like a capsule with a seat, and it just shoots it, like, up into Itarash, up in the sky, which is so cool.
Yeah.
You get that loading screen of Samus sitting, like, in the chair.
Do you know what it reminds me of? I'm sorry, I'm going to ruin this for you, but it's the meme of the wizard.
Oh, pondering the orb.
Yes. Like...
Yes.
But it's so cool. It's so cool.
The other thing, like, thinking back at that, like, I realized, like, that is the way to and from Itarash, which is where Ravenbeak hangs out. So it's like, oh yeah, he has a big freaking, like, throne that carries him to his actual throne. It's like this freaking extra piece of crap wood.
This is my summer throne. I only come here when I'm on vacation.
Why do you have two thrones? This is my mobile throne. But yeah, you get that little elevator that carries you up to Itarash.
Yeah.
You have one moment where you have those, like... Visually, it kind of looks like the Mother Brain walls that you have to shoot with the missile, but you got to use a power bomb.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of an interesting little detail. But then, yeah, you use the power bomb to blow away that wall, and then you take the elevator up towards the final area, which is a network room.
Yep.
And there's Adam there. And he's starting to say all this cryptic weird stuff about Ravenbeak and the Chozo.
I saw Ravenbeak without his shirt. They said he had an 8-pack. They said he was shredded.
I hear he's even taller than you, Samus, and his arm cannon's bigger than yours.
Like, it's so funny how I didn't notice.
Like, the whole game, he's, first of all, talking up Ravenbeak as soon as you find out who he is. He's talking about the E.M.M.Is and how, like, Samus doesn't have any hope of survival without all her equipment. And then she gets like her weird Metroid power, and he's like, "This is the thing you need, and I know this for some reason."
Yeah.
But the biggest giveaway of all was that while you're in the ship talking to Adam, he calls you lady, and he uses his "any objections" line. And then as soon as you're there on the planet, after you've been separated from him and you get to the network room, he doesn't use his "any objections" line ever, and he just calls you Samus. And I don't know how I didn't catch that it wasn't really Adam.
I'm so mad at myself for not seeing that.
Because there was a part of me, like, I was just like, oh, in this one instance, it's not Adam. Like, he's been with me the whole adventure, but this one, during this cutscene, it's a fake. And then I look back through the dialogue, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was him. It was Ravenbeak the whole time.
It was Ravenbeak it was Big Bird the whole time.
He was trying to prep you so he could turn you into the Metroid, the ultimate warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find all the stuff about, like, the backstory of, like, how they modified Samus.
Yeah, Samus is a petri dish of genetic modifications.
Yep. Even crazier. So, like, he brings up that Samus has the DNA of both the Toha and the Makin tribes, which are the two different tribes you interact with here. One of the coolest details that somebody pointed out, so the Chozo language and the way it's drawn with the little, like, triangles and stuff, is actually translatable into English. And so there's a scene where they're showing, like, the DNA, and they show, like, how it shows, like, Samus's heart and then, like, Ravenbeak's heart next to her. There are these two little lines of Chozo text that translate to Toha and Makin. So they're saying those are the two types of DNA that went into Samus. Like, somebody found those and found that you could, like, translate the Chozo stuff, and it's like, it says that. It's like, that is such a cool, like, lore building.
Oh my gosh.
It's such a cool detail. And then it's just like, it sets the stage for the most personal fight, because you get that line.
Mm-hmm. So one thing too that stands out to me that I really liked about this whole thing is there is that big reveal of, like, Ravenbeak refers to Samus as daughter.
Right, he says,
because,
my
like,
daughter.
Yeah, or like he says, like, foolish daughter or whatever. Like, and ordinarily in, like, most narrative anything, like, this trope would be like the Darth Vader, "No, I am your father," and it would be this big dramatic reveal. Samus doesn't even react. She just goes like, "All right, you're my dad. I'm gonna kill you." Like,
well, and it's like the way the scene plays out. It's like she probably knew.
Probably.
She was probably aware of that. But then that's the interesting thing, is that, like, technically he only calls Samus his daughter because she took, like, his DNA.
Yeah.
Like, I'm willing to bet that he didn't raise her.
No. Well, and that's the funny thing when you consider, like, how many other dads Samus technically has in canon. Samus collects dads like she collects children.
Like she collects DNA.
Yeah, like she legitimately, because it's like gosh, I'm thinking about it, like, has 4 other dads.
Well, and that's what makes this so personal. Like,
yeah,
she has all these, like, meaningful father figures in her life, and then there's just Ravenbeak there. He's like, "I'm your daddy." She's like, "No, you ain't."
Line. It's like, "Get in line, pal." You're a DNA donor is what you are.
I'd like to think it's even more personal, because, like, Adam was the one she most considered to be a father figure, and that was who Ravenbeak was posing as. So, like,
you know what's funny to even consider is that, like, at what point had Samus figured it out? That we, the players, obviously didn't, but
right.
Like, I'm almost positive from, like, the very moment that she talked to Adam,
She could
Like,
recognize that it didn't have like his mannerisms and his.
yeah, I would just be like, this is that Chozo that kicked my butt. I got special issue with him.
Well, she might not even have known that it was Ravenbeak per se, but
Or
she
yeah.
could like hear that and be like, "That's not Adam." Like at the very least, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then we go into our boss fight.
Oh my
with
goodness.
Ravenbeak.
This boss fight is so good. Like, it was so tough.
Mm-hmm.
And for me in particular, I got a little salty over the fact that like I struggled my way through this fight. I couldn't do it, and so I had to quit, back out. By the way, this is something this game has over fusion, and round up some more power. I got like 2 more energy tanks and like a butt ton more missiles, and then I went back.
Yeah.
And then I stood way more of a like I was actually able to do it because one of my issues was like I'd get to the 3rd phase of the fight and I'd be out of missiles.
Right.
And so like from there it was like, okay, I'm actually able to do this.
Uh-huh.
Well,
it is kind of cool. They do have like some health and missile refills
in
between phases, but then like during phase 3, if you're out, like you're just out.
Yeah. Well, and so what makes this so funny is like I beat the game, and then like a few weeks later you came over and you're like, "Hey, want to watch me just like obliterate Ravenbeak?"
Because I was already in like speedrunning mode and I'd been practicing him.
So you just like I'm sitting there watching you play this. Like now I laugh about it, but I was like, "This is disgusting."
Yeah.
This took me so long to do, and you were like first try, just curb stomping him.
Much like the mighty concert pianist, what you saw was the single performance, not the practice that led to that performance. Because let me tell you, he annihilated me during my first playthrough of the game. And that was the thing. I specifically went back to get 100% items before beating the game. Like I got all the items and everything, and he still was just like, he moves so fast. He hits so hard.
He has all of your abilities. He has the flash shift. He has the counter the punch that he does.
Uh-huh. He does, and the animation of that, like the way he just hits Samus in the gut if you don't counter it, and then it like freezes and then launches her into the wall. Like, I can feel that punch. It hurts.
Yeah, not to mention he has the move where he does the big like laser thing that like covers the whole room.
Yep, he does like the big blasty blast. He does the rapid fire bullets.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, his second phase.
He does where he gets the wings.
When the wings come out are, oh my!
And he does the Ridley stomp.
He does.
That one's so great. I saw that. It was like, oh, Ridley.
Ridley.
You were in the game.
the big one that got me, dude. Ravenbeak is way better than Ridley. I'm gonna say that right now. I like Ravenbeak more than Ridley.
It's hard to say. I think boss fight wise, I do agree. There is Meta Ridley in Prime 1. I really like that fight.
I haven't seen that yet, so I can't.
Yeah, we haven't seen Prime, but yeah, like that boss fight. Oof.
Yeah, and like the one in particular when you were just stomping him was like the move that kept killing me was where he'd make that big sun.
Yes, that one was insane, and it shoots the waves while he's still attacking you.
Yeah, and so you have to like split your attention between the two things, and then you just are like, "Oh, time to drop a power bomb here," and I'm like, "What? It was that easy?"
I did not know that my first time, but as soon as I learned that, I was like, "Okay, this fight is way easier."
Yeah.
Like, it makes the fight dramatically easier.
And then in the third phase, he does the Shine Spark!
Oh, gosh, that one is so scary.
The Shine Spark terrifies me.
What's the one? You know what the coolest thing about all this is? During the cutscene where Ravenbeak attacks Samus at the beginning, he uses all of his attacks that he uses in the boss fight, and the way that Samus gets around them is the ways that you dodge them, like, in the fight for the most part. Like, he goes to dash and do the punch, and Samus does the counter to block it. He does, like, his big, like, where he shoots the big waves, and Samus slides underneath it, like, showing you, like, oh, you gotta get low to dodge it. Just, like, all the different attacks he does are, like, the actual attacks during the boss fight. It shows, like, his armor thing, how, like, Samus is shooting at him and he's absorbing it, like he does during the first phase.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how that cutscene, like, you won't even remember it by the time you get to this
Yeah.
fight. But, like, if you do, the cutscene preps you for how to do the stuff during the boss fight. But it's just really cool that it's basically like a Samus versus Samus.
Yeah.
Truly, like, he's got all your abilities and everything.
Ironically, it's not the SAX.
No. But it's like it's where Samus came from.
Yeah. Well, in particular, one of my favorite things is when you get the counter on him, like the cinematic counter, and the way he, like, holds his gun out to the side and, like, shoots the beam but then swings it like a sword.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that one is
dude.
so cool.
It's
Just all the cinematics and everything. The transition from phase 1 to phase 2, how Samus shoves the arm cannon into his gut and then blasts him.
Yeah. Oh no! It's her Metroid claw hand. Like,
Is it?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
Like the transition from phase 1 to phase 2. She puts the arm cannon in his gut and shoots him. And then he switches to the wings. I'm pretty sure it's the arm cannon.
I
That's
might have
something
to go back
look
and rewatch it. Yeah,
That's
we'll go
something to
back
look
and
back
rewatch
at.
it.
Believe me, I fought Ravenbeak a bunch of times.
That's true.
So I wouldn't be surprised. But, like, also
yeah.
the music during that fight.
Oh,
with
the music is so good.
It's got those really, like, they almost kind of sound like Game Boy Advance, but, like, they're kind of like bit crushed choirs that are like da 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 da. It's great.
And then, dude, the transition from phase 2 to phase 3, where Samus blasts off one of his wings,
And then everyone sees it, and they're like, Sephiroth.
Yeah, and then he goes, "Nah, I ain't no poser." Like, rips his own, like, his other wing off, and I'm just like, okay.
Unflinching, no doubt he felt some pain from that, but just, like, unflinching, not breaking eye contact with you, tears his own wing off.
Yeah, it's just like this, like, I don't need this to defeat you.
Like, you see that, and he's like, no, I am cooler than Sephiroth. Like, you will not even put me in the same league as him.
All I'm saying is that, like, if this game had come out earlier, like, people would have been asking for Ravenbeak to be in Smash.
Oh, undoubtedly. That, like, and that's honestly one that they could do. Like,
could you imagine how he would play?
That would be nuts.
It'd be so cool. But yeah,
he would play like how Samus should play in Smash. Anyway.
Yeah. And then we get the finale.
Yep. So
oh my goodness.
It's so cool because you beat him. You do like your final counter against him, and then it switches to cutscene and Samus gets the Metroid hand ready. And then he just, like, grabs Samus. He's like, none of that crap. I know what to expect from you. Like,
yeah. Oh, and it's so, like, first, because you just watch, like, Samus just get furious, and she, like, starts smacking him with her gun, like, trying to break free.
Mm-hmm. It is a good point to remember in case anyone's like, why doesn't she just shoot him? It is important to remember that the power suit is kind of tied, like, to her life force and also her will to fight. So the fact that he's kind of, like, choking her to death, like, she actually could not fire. Even though he's, like, perfectly in range. Like,
mm-hmm.
There's nothing she could do at that point. So you just watch that and you're like, no, I was so close.
Mm-hmm. And she's, like, reaching for him. And you're just like, oh, man. And then just that moment of, like, where her helmet goes dark.
Mm-hmm.
And then just... It's her only other line of dialogue is just that scream.
She starts doing the most like Super Saiyan 3 transformation scream.
I don't remember if I said it to you or not, but there's a video of like that sequence where they play
Oh, yeah.
Goku's like Super
Yeah.
Saiyan power up
Yeah,
over
I
it.
remember that. And I think the funniest thing too, there's those moments like to show like how Samus is draining the power. Like she grabs Ravenbeak by the face, like crushes one of his eyes, and then starts draining the life from him, Metroid style. Um, and then like while she's screaming, like the camera cuts to like outside the ship to show that she's not just sucking the energy out of Ravenbeak, but like the whole ship.
Entire ship.
And there is kind of something about like the scream like cutting in and out as the camera keeps panning out that is kind of funny, to be honest. Like I was watching that, I'm like, this is supposed to be cool, but like I'm kind of laughing.
Well, and then like even Ravenbeak is screaming, and you see him like firing blasts at her, but like she's got such a good grip on him that like he can't do anything.
Yep. It's so freaking visceral. It's like, oh yeah, Metroid is the teen-rated Nintendo series. Like,
oh man, and then her armor.
Yep.
Dude.
Then she gets what people are referring to as the Metroid suit. And it looks so cool. I really wish we could have spent more time in this thing. Like, it was really exciting for the finale, but like, I wish they'd done like a New Game Plus where you use it or something.
Dude, it's so
the
it's
green
so
and the
cool.
red and like all the spikes and everything.
Like this felt like just the culmination of like her Metroid DNA, and it was so cool. And the fight's not even done yet.
Yup. That's the one. You know what the suit reminds me of is the Hydra from Kirby Air Ride.
Oh, it does.
And that was the thing. Like seeing that and evoking memories of that, I'm like, oh, but the Hydra's like really powerful. So this has got to be like really powerful.
Well, and then I love that it's the same controls, because like there's a thing about video games where like you get the big super power up and it's like gameplay disconnect where it's like new controls and how you do it or whatever. Like it's the exact same control scheme as the Omega Cannon.
Kind of. You just charge the shoot button. Like you don't actually like hold the R button and then fire, which was kind of funny because that's what I was thinking it was, and so I was trying to use the R button. I was like, it's not doing like the Omega Cannon, and so I got.
You did. I didn't. I figured
not?
it out. No, yeah, I figured it out.
So first of all, the funny detail. So you get this X-Parasite Ravenbeak. Which is scary looking. It's actually I don't know if you noticed this. It's Kraid.
Yeah, I did notice that, and I'm like, huh.
I didn't notice it first playthrough, but it's like the body of Kraid, and then the face splits open,
to reveal
alien style,
Ravenbeak.
and there's Ravenbeak's head like in there. Is just like disgusting and amazing at the same time.
There's this part of me, because I'll talk about this a little bit later, but about like the X-Parasites and like the will of the Chozo.
Yeah.
But like that whole thing is it's just hulking towards you, and you just start blasting it. Like
you gotta charge up your Metroid beam at first.
Yeah. So I believe, because I paused and looked at the suit, and it does say it's it's the hyper beam.
Nice. That
which
is cool.
It's the Super Metroid.
I should have thought to do that, but like you are now the Super Metroid.
I know.
It's so cool. But yeah, so I guess to come into my experience first of getting got, because I couldn't figure out that I was supposed to just charge the beam. Yeah, he just comes right up to you, and if you don't like beat him in time, like even if you do get the beam to fire, if you don't get enough hits in on him before he gets to you, he just like snacks you. He just comes up in the Kraid face just like and then it's an instant game over.
Yeah.
So I got that, and I was like, please, I don't want to have to fight Ravenbeak again. And there's a checkpoint there.
Thank
So,
goodness.
thankfully. But, like, it's so funny, because most people just figure it out. I
Yeah,
did not,
I
so I got
did.
to see that. He just snacks you down.
Yeah, and then, like, Samus doesn't even absorb the X-Parasite. She just, like, obliterates it.
Like, it's you just blast the frick out of him until he's nothing but an X-Parasite, and then Samus is like, not even taking any chances. Like, I want you gone.
Like, you will die.
And then
Oh
we
my
get
gosh. In classic Metroid fashion, the countdown.
the planet's gonna explode. You gotta run.
Samus can't leave a planet without making it explode.
Uh-huh. Everyone's like, they never want Samus to be invited to conventions. They just know at some point when she's leaving, the whole building's gonna blow.
If Samus is there, you better pray you're the animals.
Yeah, or just leave before she does.
Yeah, just like, Samus, you leaving? All right, I'm out.
They schedule her like thing as like the last event before the con closes. Anyway, this is a stupid tangent.
This is a very stupid tangent for a very fun. You still get the Metroid suit for the escape.
Uh-huh, and it's the fact you can just blast through so much crud.
It's so much fun. Like,
the other thing that's cool, like I didn't realize this at first, so there's like pitfall blocks. In this form, your screw attack breaks pitfall blocks.
dude,
So like they're now no longer unstoppable.
dude, for me, it's the 360-degree aiming
Yep.
with this unbelievably large laser.
It's so awesome. It really is cool. And I feel like the music also bookends it super well, because normally the escape music is just like the Super Metroid boss theme. This one has elements of like the Metroid theme. Du, 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 and it plays that while you're doing the escape. It's just like, oh, this is so cool.
Such a great sequence.
It
just
really is just
they
awesome.
they really do give you like just enough time. Like, if you don't, like, if you know what you're doing, you get out with plenty of time. If you don't, though, like, they give you just enough time to kind of fumble your way out.
Yeah, definitely. The other cool thing about it is like during the final stretch where you're like there at like there's like a tall tower that goes up, and then at the end of that tower is like the last door you blast through to escape. If you use the shine spark to shoot up, that's another one of those spots where like the camera work is really cool while you shine spark.
I didn't think to get one ready because I was really low on time.
Like
So
my first time through, I was just panicking. But while I was
just like space jump.
while I was doing like my subsequent runs of that, I was just like, oh, I know what to do here.
Yeah,
but it's really an awesome moment. You just shred through everything. Like if the hyper beam don't kill him, the screw attack will. Like
you don't even need to. I'm pretty sure if an enemy touches you, they just die.
really,
Like, you just absorb them.
really.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That is awesome. I mean, I've just blasted everything before it could even get to me.
That's part of the fun, is just running and gunning with this giant screen nuke of a laser.
It's so cool.
And then
yeah, then you get back to the ship, and Samus is like, "All right, power active," and then Adam stops you, and he's like, "Don't! You'll drain the ship of its power."
like, I just love that don't. Which, by the way, I'm so glad they added that, because it lets us know that, okay, Adam is actually okay. This wasn't like Ravenbeak has been Ravenbeak hasn't been Adam since like Fusion or whatever. Like, like it was since you lost contact with him, and so he is fine. Which I love that. But then also it's this added like, oh, that was almost the worst thing.
Yeah, it's like you almost like I could imagine if Samus did like drain the ship, like Adam's like AI consciousness is in there, like she might have just killed Adam by doing
Yeah.
that. Like,
In addition to like, you know, like okay, even if she survived the explosion of the planet, she would have to live with knowing she killed Adam, which
for
is
sure.
not okay.
But yeah, he just like stops her, and she's just sitting there like, okay, what do I do then? The planet's
Weighing
still gonna
options.
explode.
And then just quiet robe, just like peekaboo.
He just
I'm
comes in,
here.
and it's that shot. Like Samus is like, I watched you die. I know you're an X-Parasite. Like there's no way. And then possibly the most interesting thing about all this, and it's so like the lore implications of what happens here are extremely amazing, but like he gives the same like respectful bow, and then the X-Parasite goes into Samus and she absorbs it and it turns her back to her normal self.
Yeah. There's this part of me that I almost wish it didn't put her in the gravity suit, but in like her beginning
Oh yeah.
suit. Just because then they have a free like, all right, Samus reset to 0 for the next game.
Samus has no power-ups next game.
Yeah. Like
That would be fair, but
but like, you know, nuance.
mm-hmm.
No, but like what's interesting is so she gets out, game over. We don't even get like a Samus out of the suit. She is in the suit for the full game. So long as you don't die.
Mm-hmm.
Uh
Yeah, and it's funny too. It ends in that kind of anticlimactic, like it just abruptly stops, but like that is how, aside from Fusion, how all the other Metroid games end.
yeah.
Just like, oh, planet explodes, ship flies into the camera, roll credits.
Roll credits.
And it's like, I don't know, it's fair because that's how most Metroid games end, but I did kind of think after seeing Fusion, I kind of hoped that there would be a bit more like
Yeah.
Samus reflecting on the journey, talking to Adam or something. Like at least a little more, but
Mm-hmm. But it was still
it was
Man.
still a heck of a finale, and just that little scene with Quiet Robe.
yeah. So here's the thing, there's so much to think about and speculate about what that meant. Like, was it the X that made that decision? Was it Quiet Robe that made that decision?
Uh-huh.
And if so, what does that say about the Chozo and like their willpower, like after they've been infected?
And you almost wonder, because there's the thing, like the X like takes over Quiet Robe, and then it repeats the last thing that Samus said to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, even from that point, like you don't know it at the time that you see it, but like even at that point, it's like there's still something left of Quiet Robe. Like he's not just a mindless beast, but it's like, was it something Samus did? Was it
the X-Parasites can replicate their memories, and so like did that affect the X-Parasite?
It makes you wonder, because like normally they don't do much with the memories other than get to places and spread and do whatever, but it literally just helped Samus.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too, is like when it took over Quiet Robe, it reactivated the E.M.M.I. But there's this part of me, I'm like, was that because Samus needed to get the powers from the E.M.M.I. in order to awaken the Metroid power to defeat Ravenbeak? I don't know. And then this also begs the question, what about Ravenbeak and why he transformed into the Kraid thing?
Yeah.
Like, was that something to do with Ravenbeak's memory? Or just the Chozos, like, that powerful that, like, even when infected by the X, they still retain something of themselves?
It makes you wonder. I guess one of the other things while we're still talking about the Chozo, I did theorize that, like, and like I saw that other people theorized this too, which is pretty cool, but I was thinking, like, maybe there was some way that the Galactic Federation knew about about this rogue clan of Chozo, the Makin clan, and how they were like actually like evil and stuff, because technically they wouldn't have known anything specifically like too much about the X-Parasites, other than that they were there on the planet. So I have to wonder, were the Emmys created to hunt Chozos? And that's why they're so equipped to deal with Samus? Because she's got Chozo. It's just kind of something interesting that I was thinking about. I'm like,
I don't know.
It makes you wonder.
this is such a great ending though, because it still leaves like questions for you to try and fill in the blanks, and
like it leaves exciting lore questions, but it doesn't make you feel like, oh, but they didn't explain this, and so it's lame. I mean, to be fair, they did, because they didn't elaborate on the rogue faction of the Federation at all.
Yeah, but
like for the most part, like everything that is contained in this story wraps up perfectly, and it just leaves you with this exciting sense of mystery about where Metroid can go from here.
Yeah.
And that is the thing. They did intend this game to be like the end of sort of the saga. So like wherever the Metroid series goes next will be sort of a new beginning.
Which is cool.
It's really cool.
You know what? It kind of reminds me of like when we finished with Kirby Star Allies, and we got like this big like reveal about all of this stuff, and then it just kind of was like, all right, where do we go next from here? And now we're gonna get the new Kirby game. Like,
well, it's because they did like the pinnacle of like what 2D Kirby was building up to, and it gets its big finale with like Void Termina, and then it's like, okay, now we're doing something new, and this is going to be the start of a new direction for the Kirby series. So it's kind of like I'm hoping that Metroid goes the same way.
Yeah,
not necessarily 3D, but 3D would be cool.
Yeah,
it's just like, man, what a finale.
It really...
Like, that was the craziest final boss for a Metroid game to have.
Man, yeah.
It really was just nuts. And honestly, like, the devs really just thought about the experience, like whether you're coming into this as a newcomer to the Metroid series or a longtime fan, and really just like made something super satisfying.
Yeah, I'm so happy I got into Metroid when I did.
For real.
Like, oh, this game was so good.
This game was great. So, now we'll move on to the faves section of our title. Are you ready to talk about your favorites?
Let's talk about our favorites. Oh man. All right, what do we got first?
First up on the docket is favorite area. What was your favorite area of the game?
Okay. So originally I'd put down, it was that one shot that I mentioned earlier about like the rain and the, like, you just get off of one of the transit trains and like there's like the waves and stuff. But I actually thought about it. My favorite area was the E.M.M.I zones.
Yeah.
like specifically when you walk through those doors and there's like that mist everywhere and there's like that creepy looking, like that filter on like the camera, and just like it screams that it's a horror movie, and like you can hear the E.M.M.Is like crawling around, and it's
that beeping. That beeping noise is just so like instantly your body tenses. As soon as you hear it, you're like, oh no, they're here.
Yeah, like the E.M.M.I zones were always, you know, whenever I had to go in there, I was like, all right, I need a plan, because something in here wants me dead, wants my DNA, and I gotta get through it. And so like for me, the E.M.M.I zones like all of them. You know, even when I was like frustrated with the E.M.M.I because like they kept kicking my butt, like I was still like that was one of the most memorable parts of this game was like going through those areas. And
Yeah,
they stood
totally.
in like stark contrast to the rest of the area that they were in.
Mm-hmm. I could totally see it. Also, the fact that once you like after you beat the Emmy and go through those areas, how it does like a little remix of the music in that area, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, it's safe now.
Yeah, and it's funny that like before, like it's just you and the E.M.M.I, and like that's it. And then like suddenly like other enemies start inhabiting it once the
Uh
E.M.M.I's got like, oh, it's safe. I can move in here now.
My home away from home.
this is my mobile home.
That's great. I'm inclined to agree with that. For me, I would say my favorite area in the game was actually Ataria. The first place. Like
Yep, I
honestly,
agree.
because of the fact that you're coming and going through there constantly, seeing how it changes. Um, I think it's the area where it's most noticeable to see the little environmental attention to detail. Um, and the fact like the music updates with each time that you have to pass through. There's like the Corpius boss fight, which is pretty cool, but then also like you go back there and you fight the experiment. Um, they just got a lot of mileage out of Artaria, and so I'm just like, that's
Mm-hmm.
super cool. So that would have to be my pick for
Yeah,
favorite area.
I would also say honorable mention is the area where you get the various.
Oh yeah, you know what? I
We
think that
completely
I think that happens in Artaria as
does
well.
it?
Yeah, because you have to like trek through Cataris to
Yeah,
get
because it's
into
where
this back area like that
it's
connects
it's where
back
the
in.
temperature is rising, and so like if it gets hot enough, you take damage. You got to like
Uh-huh.
outrun the heat wave.
Yeah. And there's like all the little like jets of fire shooting out and
Yup.
everything, and like the floor is crumbling. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
about super
that
cool.
one gets an honorable mention
Uh-huh.
from me
Well,
because that
that
was a
is.
really great bit.
I'm pretty sure that does happen in Artaria, so
There you
so
go.
my answer remains unchanged. But it is improved at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Favorite boss. Can you
Uh,
pick one?
I mean, yeah. If I'm being honest, it's got to be Ravenbeak.
Mine too.
Like like he steals the
Mhm.
show. Like,
Very very close runner up I would say is the experiment.
ooh,
Um
okay.
because that's another one that I really enjoyed, but like uh, no question, it's Ravenbeak.
He has so much presence and everything, and just like he
Mhm.
was the toughest thing in there. However, my runner up for favorite boss though is Kraid.
Yeah, Kraid is another really cool one.
Kraid was so cool. There's so many fun ways, like different ways you can beat him.
Uh-huh.
He was the first like real challenge that hit me
Yeah.
hard. And just he was so fun.
Mhm. But easily Ravenbeak takes the
Yeah, no, no,
show.
no.
Like that is an elite final boss. Like that is just
yeah.
peak game design.
And I'm very much a sucker for like a final boss that is everything that you can do, they can do as well, but like better.
Mhm.
And you just utilize all of your skills that you've learned up to that point. We've spent the whole
Exactly.
game powering up for that fight, and
Oh,
it.
what was the one? I forgot about this. Some people pointed out I didn't recognize them because I didn't get far enough through the game. But some of the Aeon abilities that Ravenbeak uses are actually closer in their animation to the Aeon abilities from Samus Returns, which is just like a neat little detail. Like he has some stuff that is like from Samus Returns, which
Interesting.
is cool. Just more like fuel to the awesome train that is that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Favorite song.
So for me, it is that one remix of the theme of Samus, the Super Metroid theme, during that one cutscene. It plays very briefly, but my goodness, does that
Mm-hmm. Well,
that
isn't it
song?
also? It's the same song that plays like in the opening when Samus is doing the
Yeah.
opening narration.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, yeah. Da, da,
Just
da, 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 da.
it's those that little melody just fills me with so much like triumphant energy that I'm like, I'm going to go save the galaxy,
Yeah.
the entire universe. Like,
Uh
it's
huh.
so good. It's
It's
so
really
good.
hard.
It's such a
I almost wish they didn't play it as often as they did, because I think there's 3 times in total that it plays in the game, and I'm like, I feel like you could have just saved it for the cutscene where Samus is talking to Quiet Robe, and it would have just been like perfect. But it's a very good track. It's a really cool arrangement.
it's really good. It gets me. And not to mention like looking back like in that like montage like of just all the things that Samus has faced up to this point are just it's
Hmm.
so good. It's so good.
It's really cool. Um, Now, for me, I specifically want to not shill the Super Metroid remixes. They are very good,
Yeah.
but I want to talk
It,
about the music from this game.
yeah, that's true.
So for me, I have a couple of runners up that I just want to mention really quickly. The first one being the network station music. So the areas where
Mm.
you talk to Adam. I feel like people don't give that enough credit because you're not really thinking about anything other than that you need to save and maybe hear some Adam banter. But the fact that it's just like those kind of faint choirs,
Mm-hmm.
it makes the save rooms have this really like warm, inviting feel to them. And
You actually feel safe there.
it really does feel like a refuge from like the craziness of the world outside it. Like, and you don't know that it's not Adam at the time. But while you're thinking it's your buddy Adam, you're like, I'm here. I'm chilling with my friend. He's got my back. Like, we're just safe in this room. And there's something very impressive about an otherwise threatening aura that this game has, that it manages to do that. And I think the music is a big contributor to that. Because like I just listen to that network station music, I'm like, oh, this is peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
So that was almost it, but it's barely a song. It's just kind of a loop of
Mm-hmm.
choirs. Let's see. The third version of the Artaria music is also very good. The music when you fight the central unit, like the Mother Brain type
Oh
things, I
yeah.
mentioned that one. That one's very good. The music for Berenia, like I said, very beautiful atmospheric track. Heck, even the music during the Ravenbeak fight is super good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those, dare I say, are all runners up. But I just wanted to point them out because people are like, "Oh, this game soundtrack is not very good." I'm like, "There's a lot of good stuff in here. Like, y'all are crazy."
Y'all need to learn to actually listen to the music before
Uh-huh.
we
Well, and
talk
also
about it.
appreciate that not everything has to have the catchiness of the Super Mario
Yeah.
Bros. Theme song. Like, atmospheric tracks are good in their context.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the number one song that, like, looking back through the game soundtrack really is my favorite is the escape sequence at the end. For a lot of the
Yeah.
reasons I talked about, with like the bits of like the melody of like the press start screen, as you're just like blasting through, it's just so tense and so like, oh come on, I'm almost there. Like it really gives like the desperation of that final push, but also like a very beautiful like bookend to the entire Metroid series.
Mm-hmm.
I think the music is the main reason that scene, like the hyper beam in the Metroid suit is also very good, but like the music is just what ties it all together. Um, so that's what I would say.
This is a good. Yeah.
What about your favorite ability and or power up?
So, I have two.
That's fine.
The first one is the flash shift.
That's the one that I picked.
Okay, I'll let you talk in depth about the flash shift then, if you
right.
want to do that first.
Yeah, so it's just a really good mobility option in a series where you did not used to have very many mobility options. It's the fact that you get this quick dash from like a startup from nothing. It's perfectly catered toward boss fights where you're enclosed in a tiny box. You don't have enough room to like get the startup of like a speed boost. You don't have enough distance to get away from bosses. You just flash shift. You can zip zap any direction you want. You get multiple dashes before you run out of energy. It's like you said, it's a game changer.
It really is like so much of like once you get it, the way you approach boss fights and even just like traversing the environment changes from that moment.
Even Ravenbeak depends on that ability.
Yeah, Ravenbeak uses that ability.
He's zipping around when he's got to get away from you.
It's really cool.
It's great.
For me,
what's the other one?
It's the Storm Missile.
Storm Missile. That's another really cool one.
It's so cool. Like the moment I got it, it was like my go-to. Like, all right, I need to deal some big damage. Let's just launch like 30 missiles at this guy.
For real.
But it's a fun power. It looks cool. Not to mention, you have that bit where you fight the two like Chozo robot soldiers like in a row, but like it's right after you get the storm missile, and so it tears through their health, and so it makes that fight actually doable.
The storm missile leeches through boss health like nothing else.
Oh man, like I really love the storm missile, and it's one of those ones because like after we got the ice missiles, it kind of felt like a downgrade rather than an upgrade, and so like getting the storm missile felt like the next step after the ice missiles of like, oh, this is where we should take this weapon.
Yeah, for sure. Now, definitely understandably, this is not a thing you would notice as somebody who has not seen the Prime games, but the Storm Missiles kind of get their origin from something you get in the Prime games. There's an ability, I think it's in Prime 2. Basically, it lets you lock on to multiple targets and then fire a missile at each of them.
I think there was something like that in other M even.
Yeah, that would make sense if there was.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Either way, there's stuff like that, but they're still kind of slow, and it's just a single missile at each target. So the fact that it's like with each lock of the storm missile, you fire 3 missiles, and you can get multiple locks on a target, so you can just.
It's unloading of all 5 of those targets on an enemy is the most satisfying thing.
It's almost like the Justin Bailey cheat.
It really though, like that's what it is. It's so cool.
Where you get like the crazy firepower. I am inclined to agree. That is the other like new power up from the game that I thoroughly enjoyed.
And then just a special shout out to the cross bomb.
Yeah, the cross bomb.
It would be higher up on the list if we got it earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's still like interesting enough and did unique enough things with Samus and just again your approach to puzzles before it kind of became obsolete.
I got a question. Did you get the scan pulse?
Yes.
The one that lets you see hidden blocks. How much did you use the scan pulse?
I used it a fair bit, especially after Ravenbeak kicked my butt. And then I went back to go for secrets and stuff. Yeah, it was very helpful.
Okay. Yeah, because for me, aside from the point when I dedicatedly was looking for the items 100%, I forgot I had it. Like, because I just knew to try out my weapons on stuff.
I
So
mean, yeah, it's a lot of it. It's pretty obvious where to go, but like it was really helpful when I went searching for secrets.
okay, that's good to know. Because for me, it kind of seemed like I forgot, and I constantly forget that
See,
it's even a thing.
the one that I forgot as a thing is the Phantom Cloak, because
Yeah.
like after you've defeated all the Emmys,
Once the Emmys are
you
gone, you
have
don't need it.
you have no need for it.
Well, there's those doors where you have to be cloaked to
Yeah.
walk in, but like those are in the first area, and you hardly ever see them. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was cool for the Emmys, but not.
Yeah, it was cool and valuable when you first got it, but then over time it kind of just, as you get other things, it kind of became obsolete.
Hmm. My kitty is having a panic attack, so we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, we're almost done.
She's just like running around
Uh,
the room meowing a bunch.
I got one more category for us.
Oh, really?
Yes,
I didn't
and
know
it
about
is.
this. This is all I had in my notes.
Oh, really? I could have sworn I told this about this.
Okay,
But
well, lay it on me.
favorite moment
Favorite
in the
moment.
game.
I almost kind of feel like the areas and the bosses are the moments. So,
I mean, yeah.
um,
Uh,
well, for
I
me, I
can.
guess we've already talked a lot about these, so I can get mine out a little bit quicker. But going along with my music pick, I think the escape sequence was my favorite moment.
The escape sequence is really good.
What about yours? Favorite moment?
Again, already talked about it, but it's that moment of Samus speaking in the Chozo language.
Yeah, that's another really good one.
I adore that scene. It plays that that fanfare, that just confident like moment of Samus being like, I'll set this right.
Uh-huh.
And it's the fact that she speaks, because we mentioned earlier about how Samus, like, she's such like a beast of a person here, but then here we get to see a little bit of the person under the suit of armor,
Yeah.
and like that she is actually a person there,
Mm-hmm.
and I adore that sequence.
Uh-huh. And
I adore.
it was a way to do the emotional side of Samus's character without detracting from the cool side of her character.
Yeah, like they let her do all of these really, really cool things, but then just have like this like moment that just solidified it by making her just a compassionate person.
Uh-huh. There are tiny moments of things like that in the Prime games.
Mm-hmm.
But they're very few and far between. So
Uh-huh.
having this here was nice. I do want to change my answer. I can think now of what my favorite moment was.
Okay.
Seeing the reactions to the trailers.
Oh yeah, dude.
Now that I think of it, because I remember before we started this call, I mentioned I was rewatching like people reacting to the trailers to get myself hyped. And we did mention the two like most genuine best like ones to see were Arlo
Yeah.
just screaming with joy. And then also Some Call Me Johnny.
Yeah.
Personally, I do want to add this here because I feel like this is relevant. And I guess I didn't talk too much about this during like our Metroid history, but like Some Call Me Johnny was one of the biggest pushes for me to get into the Metroid series.
Mm.
He sells it well. The way
He
he
very
talks
much
about each of the
does.
games, it's not just like he's a blind fanboy. Like he really goes in depth on talking about like the strong points of the series and everything. And so like my love for the Metroid series kind of evolved from an appreciation of his love for the series.
Mm-hmm.
And so just getting to see him have that giddy childlike look on his face, like Metroid 5, and he's like telling everybody to shut up and like muting the Discord so he can just watch the trailer. and he's all excited, and then they drop the name that it's Metroid Dread, and he just screams, Metroid Dread! Like, it's beautiful. And not just like those two, like those two are my favorites, obviously, but like so many people were impacted just by the reveal of the trailer alone.
Mm-hmm. Myself included.
Yeah.
I
Myself included as well.
again, because I know part of the reason why I can't just outright say it is because Deltarune also came out last year, like Chapter 2. And I love both of these games for very different reasons. Like they're so hard to compare because they're so different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
That like I love them both.
Right.
But like I kind of get away with it by saying like, all right, Deltarune technically isn't finished yet. That was just Chapter 2.
Yeah.
But even then, Chapter 2 is phenomenal, and we'll talk about that later.
Right.
But I honestly think that Metroid Dread is my game of the year.
Yay! Mine too.
Like legitimately, and I don't know, maybe it's because we played so much Metroid this past year.
Mm-hmm. In preparation for this very thing.
In preparation for this very game. And like it's been such a fun journey from where like I went from like I started with Other M, and like I still stand by it. I'm so grateful to Other M for at least being interesting enough to get me interested in the franchise.
Yeah, definitely.
Like there was enough there to just like I want to know more. I want to know why everyone seems to hate this game when
even like
I thought it was fun.
For being the black sheep of the series, that's still pretty impressive. Like,
yeah,
you could do a lot worse.
You know, and then to like me reading the manga, and then Super Metroid was so good, and then Fusion was great, and then now to just cap it off with this, like this has been my favorite entry in the franchise because of just, it does so many things right, and it's such a phenomenal game. This is one of my favorite games that I've ever played. And definitely like I'm gonna do the thing that I always do where like somebody's like tells me for years like you need to play this game or this franchise, and then I get into it and I become 30 times more annoying than them, and I'm like, no, everyone needs to play this. This is so good. This is so good. I adore this game. I am absolutely a Metroid fan now.
I will probably put like the welcome back from spoilers thing somewhere in the middle of that, because I do think people who are on the fence about the game should listen to that.
Yeah,
but
it's so good. I love Metroid. You did it. You made a Metroid fan out of me. And now I'm really sad that the Metroid, at least the 2D Metroid journey is over.
To an extent. We have no idea where the series is going to go, and with this being like the money-making Metroid game, not even like, you know, for mainline series and then there's Prime or whatever. Like this is the Metroid game that hit it biggest.
Yeah.
And as we've seen with Fire Emblem, when Nintendo franchises blow up, they get some more attention. So like I feel like this could be the start of something new and exciting for Metroid.
It's funny because in the older episode we mentioned, you know, before Dread had come out, how we were like, I really hope that this game hits it big so that Metroid gets a revival. And oh boy, I think it did, and I'm so happy.
The next step now is for Nintendo to look at that and go, what other franchises can we do this with?
Yes.
Oh, where's my Star Fox Renaissance?
Oh, dude.
Where's my F-Zero? Yeah, but definitely. Was that your final thoughts, or do you?
That was my final thoughts.
Okay,
I don't know if you had anything else to add to it.
So with that, just what I want to say is, oh gosh, I want to say so many things. Definitely like you, I would say that Metroid Dread was my game of the year. Um, Unlike you, and this is not to downplay anything else I played a lot of great games besides Metroid Dread that year. Like 2021 was a good year for gaming.
Oh yeah.
Um, and with that, like with all the amazing stuff, not even just brand new games that released that year, but old ones that I picked up and played as well. Um, Despite how good all of those games were, Metroid Dread is uncontested as my game of the year.
That is
Like,
understandable.
I played tons of good stuff, but Dread just blew them all out of the water. Like,
Dread is so good.
like you, I share the sentiment. This is not just like a good Metroid game. This is one of the greatest video games ever made. And it's interesting for me. I have such a deep love and history of Super Metroid that it is hard for me to say which between the two is better. Like I really can't say. I think they're tied. Super Metroid and this for best Metroid game. But either way, both of them are like top 10 worthy.
Yep.
Extremely good games and in different ways. Like Super Metroid, I still think it hits a little bit better on the emotional storytelling without words in a lot of ways for me. Like especially that final battle sequence with Mother Brain and the baby Metroid. Like I loved the fight, like the final boss fight of this game, which I won't say because I'm trying to let the spoiler people who don't want spoilers to also enjoy this. But like I loved this game's final boss, but I did love the emotional feel of Super Metroid's final boss, so it's kind of hard to say which is better, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's some real challenge gameplay wise, and like the movement and like all the new abilities and the quality of life additives that Dread has. I do think it actually like not only beats Super Metroid, but like impressively beats Super Metroid. But this is really just an achievement of gaming. Like
Yeah.
AAA games in general these days, like not too much is riding on them to succeed and be considered a good game. Just like if they've got the budget, then it's just like, yeah, the game looks nice, plays well, has an interesting concept. If it's a sequel, then it's at least got to match like the quality of its predecessor. But Dread had a lot more to prove
Yeah.
than the average AAA game. I watched Vinesauce Vinny, his playthrough of Dread.
Ooh.
And he made a really good point that I kind of just want to ape for my final thoughts. He mentioned how like this game didn't only have to live up to like just being a quality like AAA game released in the modern era, or even like the impressive library of Switch games. It not only had to live up to being the 5th installment in a major Nintendo series, it not only had to live up to the previously poor sales of like the Metroid series leading up to this, it not only had to live up to the expectations of a game that was in development hell for 15 years, but on top of all that, it had to live up to the namesake of being called Dread, which in and of itself carried so much weight. And it did. It actually lived up to all that hype.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to me that a game like this could even be made. Like, it doesn't nostalgia pander. It's as good as the monolith of a title that Super Metroid is, and it does it without even having to be Super Metroid. It does not, like, lay into all the tropes that Super Metroid did. That was what Samus Returns did. That was more of a Super Metroid remake than a Metroid 2 remake.
Yeah.
But, like, this game just doesn't do that. it doesn't rely on the same like cheap gimmicks that like the Metroid series is kind of needed to keep itself alive. It does its own thing and it does it masterfully. It's got the attention to detail in the environments and the animations, the cinematics, like the counter scenes on bosses. Everything about it is stunning. And like on top of that, the game just cuts out the fat that like every other AAA game is supposed to have where they're basically just playable movies. Most of the game is gameplay and it's engaging gameplay.
Yeah.
And like most of all, the main thing that I walk away from this feeling is that everyone who worked on this game, whether they were credited or not, they deserve recognition for their efforts, and this game deserves to be appreciated for the masterpiece that it is.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. So I guess we're ready for the teaser then. Next time.
Yep.
All right, guys, I'm real excited going into this one. We got something very special for you. So, next time on Tradin Faves, a retrospective of one of the wildest rides in video game history. A feat of collaboration that may never be surpassed in our lifetimes ever again. So join us as we reflect on the close of the greatest crossover gaming has ever accomplished. Light will guide us on our way to the ultimate fight with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. We are going to do a retrospective specifically of the roster of the game and break down each of the characters that are in the game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, I'm excited too because it's quite a roster. It's gonna be another really long episode.
Yep. It definitely will, and that's specifically we're only doing the characters, like the fighters, the playable fighters, because there is so much more.
There's so much in that game.
We might even go back to Ultimate and do like other stuff, like in a separate podcast. To talk about more, maybe like stages or something. But for this one, it's just going to be talking about the characters and like our feelings on each of them. And the good news is, bringing up Metroid and Sonic will be extremely easy.
It'll be so easy because they're already there. Everybody's there.
Oh, I love Smash Bros. I'm so excited to be talking about that next. And the best part is, like, we've already played it, so, like, we don't have to wait for a playthrough. We can just record that one.
We can just go right into that one.
As soon as we have time, we can get to it.
Awesome.
Okay. Anything else you want to say before we close out?
Don't worry. I'll end this once and for all.
Oh, that's so cool. I wish I had something as cool to say about that. But, you know, that's Samus's words. Oh, speaking of Samus, I should check on how that 100% run. Hey, Samus. Hey, come here a sec. Yeah, you did it. 100% completion. You got all the items. You completed Tradin Faves. That wasn't so hard, was it? Like, you did that pretty easily. Like, you're a beast. You're the best in the galaxy. What? Hard mode? What do you mean hard mode? No, Samus, don't... Lady, I have some objections!